Hey everyone, and welcome to another great Brand Innovators Livecast. I'm Evie Moss. I'm the SVP of Content and Community here at Brand Innovators. And I really want to welcome you to the C-Suite and Marketing Leadership Summit. Now, today is going to be really special. I'm thrilled to kick off this event. We have a really great agenda and a great lineup of marketers. Now, before we get started, just a reminder that if you'll be in New York during Advertising Week, our big Marketing Innovation and Leadership Summit takes place at that time. You can check out the registration form on the Brand Innovators website. And then I also wanted to let you know that if you know a sharp 40 under 40 marketer, it's a good time to nominate them for one of our annual awards. They might be running your marketing department sooner than you think. I'll add a link to the registration for nomination form in the chat. And then finally, just a little bit of housekeeping. You can take advantage of the Q&A widget on the bottom of your screen. We really encourage you to engage and speak with our panelists as possible, ask questions, share amongst your fellow attendees, because that's what community is all about. Now, with that, I also want to thank our marketers, our sponsors, the folks behind the scenes who always do a great job. Thank you, Amanda, and even you, the audience, for taking part. So without further ado, I see that Todd Smith is live and in person, and we have moderator Anna Cruz. Todd is the Chief Marketing Officer of Traeger, and Anna is the VP of Best Buy Ads and Media Strategy. And Todd, I just want to say, I'll be grilling this weekend.
That's great.
Terrific. Have a good chat.
Thanks.
Thanks so much, Evie. Appreciate the great introduction. And as she mentioned, I'm Anna Cruz, Vice President of Best Buy Ads and Media Strategy at Best Buy. Best Buy Ads is Best Buy's retail media business. And I'm thrilled to be at this Brand Innovators event with you all. And since it's the Thursday before Labor Day weekend, where we know, sounds like Evie, and many folks will be spending time outdoors with their family and friends and grilling, I'm super excited, and it's fitting that I'm here today with Todd Smith, the CMO of Traeger Grills. And Best Buy not only sells Traeger grills, but they are also a Best Buy Ads advertising partner. So Todd, it would be great to start, tell the audience a little bit about your role and your background, and then, probably what's top of mind on all our minds this weekend is what are you grilling or smoking over Labor Day weekend?
Sounds great. First off, thanks for having me. Really appreciate it. It's great to be here today with everybody. So a little bit about my background. I'm Chief Marketing Officer at Traeger. I've been here just about 3 years, which has been a crazy 3 years. For our business, just had a lot of great growth. Most of my career has been spent on the brand side. I spent about 10 years with Coca-Cola Company, working on the Powerade business, and then later running the vitamin water business for the U.S. I left to join a kind of a growth phase private equity-backed company that created the human performance category called Exos. Mainly best known for training elite athletes, elite military, and about a quarter of Fortune 500 companies, and probably best known for training about half of the NFL draft every year. And so after that, I joined here 3 years ago. It's been an amazing experience. I get to wake up every day, work with a great brand, great people, and do a lot of fun stuff. And then I guess to answer your question, so what am I grilling? So my go-to, we've got some family in town for this weekend. Go-to on the Traeger is 321 ribs. That's a family favorite, and for those of you that have a Traeger, I check that out on our app because it's a great recipe. Can make you look like a champ in front of your family.
321 ribs. I'll have to remember that one. So let's start a little bit about the Traeger community. I know you mentioned that and it's obvious as you talk to people who have a Traeger, because there's this whole cult phenomenon around the Traeger grill, and you've built quite the community around the brand. You talk a lot about with your brand, and in our prep call, you talked a little bit about bringing people to get together as part of the Triggerhood. Tell us a little bit about the community and the following around your brand.
Yeah, it's a great story. I mean, the brand's been around since 1987, and this community just has naturally formed over the years. It's something that it is really powerful when you talk to people, and it's something that people identify with this brand and the community that they're part of. We call it the Triggerhood, and it's our way of just kind of thinking about the community as a key pillar of our brand. It's these are people that love to cook, love to share content with their friends, really love creating these experiences with the Traegers so that they can, whether it's bringing people together for a cookout, sharing food with friends and family, and it leads up to our larger mission as a company about bringing people together to create a more flavorful world. That's really our North Star and really what we strive to achieve. So it's a community like nothing else I've ever been part of, any of the brands, and it's something where we receive wedding invitations. So this year we received about 6-7 wedding invitations, and we are going to show up. So if you're one of those people, don't be surprised when we show up. But it's also one
awesome.
where you have people who name their children Traeger, get tattoos on their body with our brand. And when you think about at the core what this product is, it's a household appliance, an outdoor appliance. And I struggle to find other brands that in that category that see the same type of fever from their community of people doing those types of things. So it's really an honor. We look at the community really as really the owners of this brand, and we really try to act more like gardeners and really kind of find these opportunities to really engage with those consumers.
Well, I cannot wait to hear how you show up at these weddings. I'll be waiting to hear about that. So on our call, you shared a really incredible stat with me, which based on what you're saying it seems surprising, but maybe it's not based on what you're saying, but 80% of Traeger customers refer 5 people to your brand. Now, when I've listened to my brother-in-law and friends over the years who have Traegers rave about them. So maybe I could be one of the 5 people when we bought our Traeger that they get to take credit for. But share a little bit about how you found out that stat and what your team does with that to influence your marketing plans.
Yeah, it's an amazing stat. It's after speaking with thousands of consumers over the past year, a larger study that we did. It really, to me, demonstrates the power of this community. And as I mentioned, we try to look for things to as the community is really the owners of this brand, we try to do things that stimulate engagement, whether it's opportunities to share content, opportunities to whether it's user generated, just cooks that they're using. We have a connected grill ecosystem, so we're able to see things that get people to cook more often, which is really a lot of the goal. We feel that with such a great product and experience, if we can get people to cook more often, they naturally want to share that with others. And so we look for things that help try to just make it easy and have a conversation with our consumers.
And you talked a little bit about in our call that your team is constantly kind of testing and trying and playing with new ideas for your communities. You have lots of recipes and content in there. Share a few examples of things that you've tried or tested that have either worked or not worked, and how you continue to evolve that.
Yeah, we try everything from limited edition. This past year, we launched a set of limited edition meat sweats, literally meat sweatpants that had a holster for your tongs and other things that sold out within 45 minutes that we put them up on our website. Other cooking challenges, we have what we call Traeger Kitchen Live, where really it was born out of the pandemic, where we used to host in-person cooking classes. But with everything shutting down, we turned to just packaging up a camera, sending them to people in our community that would host hour-long cooking classes, where we'd get 150,000 consumers, patching in for those on a weekly basis. And so just fun stuff like that. Or this past year in April Fools, we we try to do something every year in a fun way. And this past year, we launched a limited edition set of wood pellet cannabis pellets, and those were kind of, we had a pretty good response on those, but obviously we weren't selling those. But just some fun stuff to drive conversation. And honestly, we really don't take ourselves too seriously. And I think we take a very much kind of test and learn approach with our community.
That is so interesting. I love the April Fool's jokes, keeping humor in the marketing. So one of the things as we think about just to build on community, we have an ambassador program here at Best Buy, but you have a unique community ambassador program that, really I'm so impressed by it. You've built it with people who embody the Traeger lifestyle, and really are just like probably naturally so passionate about the brand and live the lifestyle of Traeger per se. Tell us a little bit more about the ambassador program and how it came to life, and then how you decide who those partners are going to be for you.
Yeah, it's a special part of our program. We work with people that are kind of well-known, world champion barbecue pitmasters, to Michelin star chefs, to the kings and queens of the cul-de-sac, and just people that love the product out there. I think what we look for are people that are passionate about our brand, who naturally can't stop using it, want to talk and share about it, and just love the product. And those are the people that we like to kind of celebrate and collaborate with. We have an in-house team that's been built over the years, just in-house. We don't outsource that, because it's really about relationships and the relationships that are built there. It's a special part of what we do, and it's something that we feel is a unique competitive advantage for us.
So let's shift a little bit. It's clear you've got a great following with your community and the Triggerhood crew. I'd love to talk about that customer experience and how you sort of cultivate that passion along the journey. People get their first grill, they turn into these huge, massive fans, and how do you keep that going?
Yeah, it's something where you think about a grill being the only time of like when you're actually sitting by the grill being that customer experience, but we really try to think along the whole consumer journey. So both on new customer acquisition and also our existing customers. With existing customers, we really think along that whole consumer journey from the moment someone's inspired to cook something. So like we were talking before, people, you're wondering, what am I going to cook this weekend? I've got some people coming over for Labor Day. We try to be a point of inspiration there that gives different ideas. And then it brings it down to the tools to bring it all together, both from an ingredient standpoint, as well as kind of the cooking experience and education process of walking you through step by step, so that when you put this on the table for your guests, you've got an amazing experience. And along the way, we offer not only people cooking at the grill, but you've got consumables that we offer. Not only the wood pellets that give it the great wood-fired flavor in the Traeger, but rubs, sauces, glazes, you name it. We've got a bunch of different things that help kind of up your game in the different things that you're creating. And it's part of the digital experience is a huge part of it, because that's what's really fueling a lot of that content inspiration and recipes that are really personalized based on you and your cooking habits. And we're able to kind of walk you through step by step in a way that's really foolproof. It's really improved my ability to cook and entertain, and it's something that we hear a lot from our consumers about.
And speaking of digital, I know your digital channels you mentioned are a huge component of how you kind of foster that community and the word of mouth. And you've got the Traeger app. And tell us a little bit about how that all comes to life.
Yeah, we have an in-house content team and culinary team that's working, developing those recipes, shooting the content. And really looking on based on your interests and habits, kind of customizing that for you. We do a lot of work as well, not only with kind of the cooking experience, but even from somebody that purchases a new grill, from not only helping you along the shopping experience, but after you purchase, making sure you're kind of prepared for what's coming, kind of what to expect when you're expecting a grill. We really think a lot about that consumer journey, and there's a lot of fun things from a digital standpoint that we do before that grill arrives. And once it does, everything from kind of holding your hand through digital assembly and onboarding, that crosses over to the physical side as well. So those of you that have had a new Traeger, I don't know if you recall, but there's it's kind of some nice surprise and delight elements inside that box. It's kind of fostered through digital, but this is in the physical side of, inside the box that normally people have to figure out what to do with this thing, this big box. We have a kind of artwork on the inside that turns into a cabin for your kids. So your kids can kind of enjoy themselves while you're putting together your Traeger, and then well beyond that. The digital assembly guide as well talks you through of, you're going to need about 6 beers to put this thing together. And those of you who put together, toys for your children at different times, you know how that feels. But you say, take 6 beers, and as you're going through the instructions, you've got, the beers start going away in the instructions, and inside the box, there's some different bottle holders or can holders for your beers as you're going along. So we really try to think about that consumer experience, not only on the digital side, but as it crosses the physical, and give those little moments that allow us to express the brand personality at times of something that could be a really frustrating experience with a lot of other products and brands.
Yeah, I love that, how you've thought about that unboxing experience. And we've all put together, toys, furniture, all the things. And I think it's such a good way to manage customers' expectation of, is this a one drink experience? Is this a six pack unboxing experience? So that's really smart.
Yeah.
Let's switch gears just a little bit. We've got, I want to talk a little bit about some of the macro business trends that are happening right now. You mentioned you've been at Traeger for about 3 years, and knowing when you started, you probably started a little bit pre-pandemic. We experienced a couple of years of really challenging times, but from a customer perspective, they're doing a lot of buying, a lot of investing in the home, a lot of spending time at home with their families. And so for a Traeger and people like Best Buy and other retailers, business was good in many ways. Now we're entering a different phase where, in the headlines, you read it every day, many companies are facing workforce reductions. We've got pressure on expense and all of those things. So I'm curious, these are such different times to lead through. How does your leadership look different today than it did a couple of years ago during a much different economic landscape?
Yeah, I think it's just forcing people to focus and eliminating the noise for your team, understanding kind of what really makes your brand unique, and where do you drive focus. And I think that's something that a lot of businesses are going through right now across the board. For our team, it's been great because it's provided us, the opportunity to really hunker down and drive the things that make our brand unique. So that's something that how we're looking at it. I'd say, also in the macro, that is a reality. I think it just, there's a lot of consumers that are in our ecosystem that we focus a lot on, but it's also a brand that, we're relatively young in terms of our growth cycle. It's a brand with only 3% household penetration of all grill owners in the US. So there's a lot of runway. So there are these cycles that do come up, but it's the thing for us is really about focus.
Yeah. I mean, that's an incredible stat that only 3% of households have a Traeger grill. How do you use the data around both cultivating the 3% and that 97% that don't have a Traeger grill in their home? How do you consider that in your marketing strategy?
Yeah, we're really focused on a couple key consumer segments for us. These are consumers that cook often, cook a variety of different foods. The proposition of our brand is attractive to them if they only knew about it. So one of the biggest opportunities is definitely driving that awareness. So whether it be, geographically different areas that are we feel are opportunities for us, but also we really focus on the core. With that powerful word of mouth that we spoke about before, we see this flywheel effect of people with a Traeger. They definitely want to share more with their friends and family, and it's something that kind of builds upon itself. So we look at it a bunch of different ways, and also we look at it over multi-year kind of horizon. And I think that allows us the flexibility to kind of ebb and flow based on where we see the opportunities.
Got it. Another thing we've sort of observed here at Best Buy is over the past couple of years where demand is so high from consumers for a lot of products like Traeger and appliances and all of those types of things. Some brands were so focused on getting enough product with some of the supply chain issues and getting all of the resources to do that and meeting that high customer demand that some brands took their eye off innovation. And as I look at Traeger, that does not appear to be the case. You guys have continued to innovate and launched a pretty impressive product line this spring with the Timber line. How did you keep that focus over the last couple of years, both on meeting that high demand and continuing to innovate?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, we've got an amazing product team that, innovation is kind of really in the lifeblood of our company. And, Traeger kind of came onto the scene as a disruptor. So I think we're always very conscious of not being disrupted ourselves. And we think the experience can always be better for our consumers. So the product that we launched this past year, it's really, flagship, top of the pyramid type product that looks to really eliminate a lot of the pain points that consumers had with pellet grilling. Everything from in the past, you had to vacuum out the ash from your grill after 5 to 6 cooks, to a grease bucket that might be on the side of a pellet grill, or just more consumers wanting higher temperatures in order to sear. And this new model of Timberline grill for us solves a lot of that, from a grease and ash keg that captures all of that so you don't have to vacuum it anymore, dump out your grease, to a induction hob that sits next to the grill that provides extremely high temperatures that allows for great searing. You can smoke a great steak on the Traeger and bring it over to the induction hob to reverse sear it and get a nice crisp sear on that. So it's something that we have a great team from a product standpoint that's always trying to improve the experience for our consumers. And it was something that was just critical to us. And that technology that we have, because it's a kind of top of the line type price point and offering, that technology is going to filter down over the years to other products. So we're excited about that.
That's awesome. I have never had so many friends that have been interested in building like pretty impressive outdoor kitchens as I have in the last couple of years. And curious, since the line you just talked about, the Timber line, appears to be, it's a higher end line. It's got customization that you can, sort of build it into that custom outdoor kitchen. Was there some insights, or what were the insights that led to that being the product line that you really sort of focused on over the last, months and year?
Yeah, it's something that we saw kind of an opportunity to address those pain points. It's also able to be a built-in grill. So it's the first from our line as well. So when you talk about outdoor kitchens, that fit into that very well. And then we've got a great ability to kind of customize it with a series of different accessories that clip onto the grill and kind of make it your own. So, looking at consumer behaviors and trends is really what drove us, and constantly looking at that consumer journey and finding those pain points and that we needed to address. And so that's really kind of what drove us. And making sure that we're bringing real innovation to the market. I think that's something that you can, it's something that really satisfies that unmet consumer need.
So to build on that, I'd love to talk about some of the other product categories that Traeger has outside of grills, and how you're thinking about it, innovating and expanding in those. You mentioned some of them, earlier in the session with pellets and rubs and things like that. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, it's a really interesting part of our business because it's some people might say, oh, it's kind of like the razor and razor blade, and it's sort of like that, but because you have somebody that purchases a grill and then you've got this ongoing cooking behavior that happens. So consumers are buying pellets to fuel their cook. There's sauces and rubs that are tied in with different recipes that we have, and others that just consumers love using on all different types of foods, not only proteins, but vegetables as well. And then you've got sauces that you kind of make a meal, take it up to another level. And so we've got a unique line of those products as well. This past year, we really expanded beyond kind of our traditional channels into new channels like groceries. And that was really born out of an insight of consumers, wanting these food products essentially to be there where they shop for food. And it's something where we've expanded across the country in Kroger this year, not only with pellets, but our sauces and rubs. And it's a program that's doing well so far. We've got also some fun. It's also a fun place that we can do some great collaborations. We announced earlier this summer a collaboration that we're doing with WhistlePig. They launched in July their WhistlePig Smokestock whiskey that is out, which is amazing. You should try if you see it in the market. And then we've got some news coming out over the next week. We've collaborated with them on products of our own, so pellets, sauces, and rubs that are in partnership and from down to the core product sense, incorporating elements from the WhistlePig brand. And it's something that will come out over the next week. I can't say too much more about it, but it's something that we really feel is a fun kind of two-way partnership. That's not just slapping logos on each other's products, but there's something really down in the core of the product that both of us are bringing to market that we know our consumers will be excited about.
I love the partnership and the collaboration with WhistlePig, and it's fun to see brands putting the power of them together to create some interesting and new collabs. So let's pivot just a little bit. We are, at Best Buy, we are big advocates for educating youth and getting more folks interested in both technology and marketing and all of those types of things. So we have a pretty robust summer internship program. And it's kind of just wrapping up here at Best Buy. Interns have now kind of gone back to school for the year, but I'm just curious for you, what advice would you give to anyone, a college age intern today?
A couple of things. One of them is that I don't think career paths are linear. You've got to be comfortable, and you've got to be comfortable with that. I often tell people, look at your career in kind of 3 to 5 year segments. Where do you see yourself being? And I think that it allows you to make a lot of good choices about your career, about the experiences that you're going to gain, stretch assignments, and otherwise that allow you to kind of move along that path, but not be short-sighted. And another thing I tell people is put yourself in uncomfortable positions, whether that's roles, projects, opportunities. That's the only way you're really going to grow and kind of see, you'll surprise yourself on how you step up. So that was good advice that I received early in my career. And, something that I've taken to heart. The other thing I'd say is get to know people. This is, I think our world's built on relationships, and it's tougher now because, you've got people that are not always in the office. So you've got to find ways to connect on a personal level with people, because you never know that those relationships can go so long in moments of need, or you're somebody that's top of mind with somebody when opportunities come up. So that's the other thing I'd really focus on.
Yeah, that is great advice. I'd love to kind of see that come full circle. One thing we did not talk about in our prep, so hopefully you're comfortable with this, but as I look at your brand ambassadors program and you know, the brand of Traeger and the lifestyle of Traeger could be, from an outsider looking in, could be perceived to be a little more male focused. But as I looked at your ambassadors, it's a really robust group of folks. You've got lots of females, lots of males, you've got diversity in there. I would love to just have you share a little bit with us about how a brand like Traeger thinks about inclusion, diversity, equity, all of those types of things. And, you know, how does that fit into your kind of sort of vision and purpose for your brand?
Yeah, great question. You know, this was an observation I had when I came into this category myself. You know, you think of, you know, grilling in general is kind of a Game of Thrones category. It's like steel and fire and, you know, black iron that you see. You know, people use the terms like man the grill and those types of things. Our brand kind of looks to kind of flip that on its head. Going back to our mission of, you know, bringing people together to create a more flavorful world. We talk about people. We don't talk about men. We have a very diverse group of consumers that love our brand, and we look to partner with those that kind of represent our consumer base in the Triggerhood. And so we do have, you know, it's purposeful. We have a lot of community ambassadors that represent that diversity. And it's something that's important to us. And it's not just about, it's also it's a diversity of even like style of food that you cook on the grill. So we look to kind of bring that through the line, both in who we partner with and how we go about things, really to reflect our community.
That's great. So I do have a couple follow-up questions if we have time. But first, I wanted to just kind of open it up to see if any of our audience had some questions here. It looks like we had one in the chat. So it says, Todd, you mentioned building relationships, but with many people working from home or working hybrid, how are you building relationships internally with employees and externally with your vendor partners?
Yeah, great question. You know, we spent a lot of time talking about this because before people were in more of a hybrid environment, everyone was here. It was something that we felt was kind of important to the culture. And I think when you step back, it's a lot of those casual collisions that you have and getting to know and talking about, you know, little things that don't have to do with work. So I think, you know, it's important when you start off, whether it be one-on-ones or team calls, talking to people about how they're doing, you know, before just jumping into your agenda.
Little things, yeah.
Understand what's happening. We also try to plan stuff in advance when we know people are either coming into town or a reason to get people to come into town to do events. Whether, you know, one of our key values is what we call cook together. And it's not necessarily the literal definition, it's really about teamwork. But we're, you know, our marketing team, we're getting everyone together later this month to literally cook together and almost kind of have an amazing race type of thing where we all cook and share that. To another thing we're doing next quarter, there's a great ski resort nearby here in Utah that we're going to go for a day and not talk about anything but work. We're going to let people go and hike, mountain bike, zip line, just
That's awesome.
chill out, just to kind of get to know each other. And I think that's something really important, especially when you have new people that maybe started during the pandemic or are working remote. You need those folks to maximize their time when they're coming to your office to spend the rest of your team more on relationships than anything, just so that it's not a face on the screen, you know.
Yeah.
And so those are some main things.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, we've talked a lot about that at Best Buy as well, with people who started remote during the pandemic and have never been to campus and have never really met some of their peers in person. And so I think getting that time together, I love the idea of just giving folks a day to spend time together without being in work mode. All right, it doesn't look like I have any other questions from the chat right now, so I'll pivot to a couple more little bonus questions for you. What trends or new technology are you excited about, or are you watching right now?
Yeah, big one is I'm just harnessing data. I think, as I mentioned, we have a connected device that on a macro level looks at different cook data and other things, and a lot of other data that we have just on a marketing side. I think it's one thing to have a bunch of data, but then it's another thing to really harness it and know what to do with it. And really for us, it's about delivering a better customer experience. So I think that's something that I'm really interested in, is how do you harness this to really help drive your business?
All right, another question from our audience here. How do you feel about out-of-home advertising? Do you have any impactful campaigns or advice to share?
Yeah, I'm a big believer in out-of-home. I've had great experiences, but I think it's got to serve a purpose. It just can't blend in with everything. Last year, we looked across important markets for us, one of them being in our backyard in Salt Lake City. We did an out-of-home execution, and we called it Farm to Traeger, where we started out as a billboard on a major highway that passes across the country. And it started out, and the billboard was a blank grill. And outside the billboard, there was a barnyard, if you will, of cattle, of pigs. There was corn stalks, and other things. And every few days, one of the animals disappeared, and you had, say, pigs are gone. The ribs were up on the grill. The next few days, the cattle were gone. You had a big steak on the grill, etc., and then some corn and other things, and kind of the barnyard disappeared. And it was one of the things where you had commuter traffic going by, and they'd notice something like that. And it was a bit of more of a spectacular, but it was something that drove a lot of conversation. It wasn't just something we did here in Utah, because it was something we were able to amplify and pick up. And something like that it made it impactful. It made it disruptive. It wasn't just buying boards in order to meet some type of reach goal. It really had a purpose. And we have to punch above our weight at times as a brand, just kind of our size in the category. And that was an opportunity for us to be disruptive. So big believer in that. To me, I'm kind of channel agnostic. It's more about the idea and how to best convey that to the consumer. Yeah,
that's great. One of the things that is kind of surprising. So my husband came home on March 17th of 2020 with a box with a giant Traeger in it. And I remember that day because it's my daughter's birthday, and it was like at the very, very start of the pandemic. It has been the gift that keeps on giving for us over the last couple of years. And one of the things that really surprised me was the idea of cooking things besides, like you think of like meat and potatoes and, things like that on a grill. But my husband, one of my favorite things that he makes on the grill is cornbread with that smoky flavor. And it's just fantastic. I recently heard of somebody who smokes water to make whiskey or smoked flavored ice cubes for their drinks. Would love to just curious from you, as a diehard Traeger lover, what is something that would surprise people that you like to put on the grill?
Well, vegetables are amazing. When it comes down to it, it's kind of like it's an outdoor oven in a lot of ways. And seafood is amazing. It doesn't stink up your kitchen if you want to cook that. Vegetables, but cocktails. So you're kind of what you were mentioning about the ice cubes. Making simple syrup or other things out of natural berries that you can smoke and kind of mix into cocktails. That's actually, it's a great thing and something that a lot of our consumers love. It's a great thing to share with people and kind of blow their mind in terms of both in a flavor and the fact that you can make these things on a grill.
Absolutely. It blows my mind.
I have one. because I've been reading about this ever since you mentioned inspiring folks on their customer journey when they start to cook. I saw a recommendation for a recipe for Traeger smoked bacon wrapped Oreos.
Ooh,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
that sounds like a great
That's
combo.
on Pinterest and everything. So are you responsible for that one, Todd?
It's not necessarily me. We have an amazing culinary team, but also it's a lot of the community. Some of these are happening with just consumers and they're sharing them. And then we use our platform to kind of share the content that they're doing with others, and it really takes off. So that's a great example of something that you wouldn't see in a normal cookbook, but it's something that people are just sharing this because they want to share this creation with others, and we see those and try to kind of elevate those for the rest of the community.
Well, good job elevating this conversation. When you have a CMO who encourages April Fool's jokes and consumers who are such fans that they get Traeger tattoos, you knew it was going to be a good conversation. Beautifully moderated from Best Buy Ads, Anna, Todd. Thank you so much. You guys were fun and you kept the conversation going and really informative. And channel agnostic, what's not to love? So with that, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having us. Great to talk with you, Todd.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
All righty. Well, I don't know how you follow up from smoked bacon wrapped Oreos, but as I mentioned, there's a lot of juicy stuff coming up on our sessions today. Now, this one was so juicy that we pulled one out of the archives. This is a replay of a terrific conversation between NBC Universal's SVP of Digital Marketing and Media Strategy, Ted Chi, and he was speaking with InMobi's Robin Myers. Now, you're not going to be able to engage or ask questions on this one because it was pre-recorded, but you'll be able to learn a lot from this discussion. So hang in there. We're going to be back in 40 minutes for more live conversation.
Wonderful. Well, thanks again for having us. I'm Robin Myers. I am the VP of West Coast Partnerships here in Los Angeles. And I'm so excited to be chatting with Ted. Would love for Ted to introduce himself as well.
Hi, can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
All right. Hi, I'm Ted Chi, SVP of Digital Marketing and Media Strategy at NBC Universal, based here in sunny Los Angeles.
I love it. That's great. Well, thanks again for joining me today, Ted. Before we get started and dive into all of the interesting insights that we'll be discussing, I would love to hear a little bit more about your career path. How did you get to your role at NBCU?
Well, I don't want to bore the folks on the call with too much detail, but I would just say, like my career path, I've always just had the opportunity to do stuff that I've been passionate about and I've enjoyed, and that included the stint at Activision. Used to be more of a gamer in my single days, and it basically in the media and technology spaces. So I've kind of gone from, I've been at the Activision, at the Foxes, spent some time at Yahoo, Disney, and most recently Universal. I would say like the big kind of thread through my career is that I've gone from, and I've had people, recruiters share this, I've gone from big company to small company. I think I'm fairly entrepreneurial by nature, and so I've done a couple startups, and either they've had very tiny exits or they've run out of money, and then I've gone to a large company back and forth. But I will say one thing that's super unique about Universal and NBC Universal in particular is it's just like an extremely entrepreneurial company. So people use the word intrapreneurial a lot, and I definitely feel that at the company, with things changing so much, especially in the media space, it's a great place to be. So bunch of stuff. So sports, technology, media is kind of like the crux of where I've been.
That's great. Wow. It sounds like a lot of fun. And what a journey, my goodness, getting all of those different experiences, across, sort of the smaller and larger types of companies. I would love to, hear a little bit more about your management and leadership style. How would your team describe you?
Someone asked me recently, like, how would you describe, other than your title, how would you describe your job? And I think it would be 2 words. It would really be the digital plumber, because really, ultimately, my goal is just to make sure my team is not only are they productive, but they're happy where they're at, and they feel like they're driving the business forward. So that's everything from just making sure everyone's set for, this is a crazy time. We're coming off of COVID. There are people are kind of transitioning back to work in some cases. They've gotten used to being at home, so it's kind of a challenging time. So I think making sure people's like their mental health and their lives are prepared for something like that is super important to me, to make sure that they're growing and they're learning and providing stretch projects so that ultimately they're not, they feel like they're growing. And it's funny, it kind of goes back to my career background a little bit, because you get to a certain point, whether you're at a big company or a startup, and you start getting bored, and that's the worst place to be. So continuing to kind of push the team and learn and just recognize, it sounds corny, but recognize that they're truly people first.
I love that. Everyone, let's go look at NBCU for roles on Ted's team. You sound like an awesome manager and leader.
Oh, well, I will say, I mean, everyone has pros and cons, so you're going to have to ask the team. But in general, I'm very much of a people first and a results driven manager.
That's great. I love that. Speaking of COVID, I heard you mention, addressing some of the challenges from a personnel and team level. I would love to hear around, how COVID shifted your strategy, if at all, at NBCU from a business perspective.
Yeah, I mean, I'll talk about NBCU a little bit, and then I'll just talk about personal, which I think is more interesting. Well, I think maybe not. But on the NBCU side, we're in the film business. I'm on the film side, and on the transactional home entertainment group. And just overall, because of COVID, people weren't going to see movies, and that's clearly changed. And you look at, what's happening this summer with Jurassic, and most recently for us for Minions, and people just weren't going to the theaters, so they still wanted to be entertained, and they were doing that in the home for a bit. So they were, when we launched Trolls, it was primarily in the home. People can enjoy it with their families. So there was a bit of a disruption in our business, and with just everything that was going on, not just watching movies, but even personally, I know that I don't really go to the gym anymore, and maybe if you had a full body shot, you'd see the results of that. But really, it just comes down to people are investing in their homes, and they're doing stuff at home, and I'm kind of conditioned. I don't really go out and shop that much. I mean, not a plug for Instacart, but I use Instacart for a bunch of stuff. So I just think that behavior, like that home-based behavior, it's certainly opening up right now. But that was the disruption on the NBCU side. But even personally, I think we've all really felt it. And I think there's something really deep down subconsciously as well. It's kind of, we could also, we're moving forward, and there are always different variants and always things going on, but I do think we're shifting to a sense of normalcy. But similar how we really don't know that much about COVID at the end of the day, we really don't know about, the kind of long-term implications of just our consumer behavior and how we work. And I can tell you, more recently, I've been going into the office a little more, and I enjoy it. I think it's great being around colleagues, but the commute, being in LA, is a killer. And you can really tell people are going back, and it's challenging in many ways. But we have all acclimated to it, and I think we're all kind of better on the other side.
Totally. I remember, Ted, I'm so glad that you mentioned the Trolls release back in, when was that? The summer of 2020, I want to say. And I remember as a child, we were never allowed to order movies or anything like that because my parents were really strict about it. And I remember my kids really wanted to see it. And I remember thinking, wow, $20 to rent this. And we rented on Amazon Prime Video. I'll never forget it. And ever since then, I think it has normalized and shifted my mindset and our family and our behavior as to, what's possible and what's, what we're able to view in the home, and really making it, much more sort of premium home experience, which has been just such a wonderful thing. I think, you no longer, of course, we love going to the movies, but I think having options is always a great thing. So, back to your comment about shifting that mindset and behavior. It's just really so interesting. Kind of on the same, in the same vein, what trends have you been seeing from your purview at Nbcu in the industry? Would love to hear a little bit more about, any market shifting dynamics that you can discuss.
Yeah, I mean, the term, well, a couple things, like maybe this is my background in games, but I really do feel like everything is gamified. Everything we do in marketing, it's all about, like retaining attention, acquisition, engagement, etc. So I do feel like the whole notion of keeping people engaged in certain ways is like permeating throughout everything. But I think that's been there for a while. I think the other thing is just you think about like the metaverse. Everyone talks about what's going on, and I've been like more and more so spending more time with my Quest and with Oculus, and just like thinking about that economy and people's level of engagement in the metaverse. It's going to be super fascinating, scary and fascinating at the same time. But I think clearly there's a ton of business opportunity and business applications there. And then I think the last thing, at least for me, is some of the devices. You look at it like 20 years ago. I did a startup. It was called Food Jiva, and it was basically like what Grubhub is today, but pre-mobile. So that might date me a little bit. So, and you think about just some of the innovation that's been happening, and it's just happening across the board. But also throughout that time, you look at all the device releases. You look at Google Glass, and most recently, I think Snap came out with, I forget what it's called. It's their
I think they're spectacles, right?
Well, there's the spectacles, but they also have the God, I can't think about it. The drone. So it's like a mini drone that kind of follows you around and stuff. And these are like these devices. It's fascinating how this stuff is gonna, impact behavior, and something cool like that. It's a test, but it could really turn into something big. The Google Glass one is, I remember years ago I had a chance to try that. And the technology is amazing, and you think about it, that was a long time ago, relatively speaking. And now you have like other companies rolling it out just now, but it's going to be more consumer oriented. It's not going to look like a weird Minority Report thing. It's going to have a lot of consumer application. It'll be interesting. But I think technology, just in general, like the games and technology piece of it, is really changing the way we think as marketers, but also more importantly as consumers. I have 3 young kids, and I think about the day that they're like 30 years from now, what things are going to look like. Because I look back 30 years and I'm like, God, you know what? Yeah. Everything around us, it wasn't here at all.
I know, it's so wild to think about. I also have 2 young boys, and my 8-year-old was like, wait, I was referencing something around how I didn't have a phone to look up something, right? Like for now, for us, everything is instantaneously available and on demand. And I think that was such a foreign concept to him, that didn't exist even 20 years ago. So I think so much has changed in such a short time, which is so exciting. Does that present any challenges to you as a marketing leader? Obviously, this sort of on-demand lifestyle now has got to be a bit challenging. Anything you can share there, Ted?
I just think as a marketer, the world is more and more fragmented. It's tough to reach different audiences from a media perspective or an advertising perspective. There's so many different channels and walled gardens, and everyone's chasing kind of like the MTA of it all and multi-touch attribution. And it's really hard to, when you think about like what's the one uber KPI that everyone's working towards. Obviously, it's like everyone's trying to, maybe it's revenue or maybe it's people, etc. But when you look at across channels and stuff like that, it's really tough to have like an apples to apples comparison. I wish everyone would just use, the same thing so we could easily compare everything. But I guess that's what some of our friends want us to do, but just within their own walled garden. But it's super interesting. I mean, I don't think it's gone are the days like of Mad Men and a whole kind of let's do a cool advertising campaign and try to forget. It's super fun now and it's super interesting. So never a dull moment, that's for sure. That's why it's always fun, like stuff like this. I love to jump on events like this just to hear about what other folks are doing and how they're thinking about it, because I think collectively as a kind of what Brand Innovator does as a group of marketers, like we can only get better and learn from each other. No one has all the answers. I certainly don't, but just the more and more we can kind of collaborate, the better.
That's right. Yeah. And I'm sure a lot of people tuning in today are looking to you for some insight and answers, which is great, which is why we're here. Right. So that's awesome. I would love to hear a little bit more. I mean, I think, obviously Nbcu is known for so many wonderful franchises, right? You mentioned Jurassic. Can you share any cool insider info on, how your team has activated around some of these larger franchises? I feel like everyone on the call is probably pretty interested.
Yeah, you know what? Obviously, I mean, there's no kind of insider baseball with this stuff. It's like, I mean, there are really no secrets. I would say, you have a franchise, like different types of films, right? You have a franchise like Jurassic where, people are familiar with, and we have a lot of other titles that are super cool, breakthrough, that our approach is just really different. We want to do something, everyone's going to do the block and tackling, but we're always looking for different ways to kind of reach our consumers. It's going to be different. Here, I'll give you one example. For Jurassic, one thing we've done is we've partnered with a studio to come out with I shouldn't say it. Never mind. The press release is coming out soon. Yeah. So I'll say, everything from, creation of games. So like we'll create a trivia night, for example, for people who are really into the franchise, because they're kind of they're kind of uber engaged in the franchise, and everyone kind of wants to be the expert. They want to they know all the dinos, or they know all the characters, or they know all the cars, etc. So we've done stuff like that for previously in the home entertainment for Fast, and then you have like different sweeps and promotions that we've run. Like for us, it's a little different because for the transactional business, we're not the point of purchase. So we're working with our distribution partners like the Apples and Googles and Amazons of the world, and just partnering with those guys to come up with kind of cool campaigns. One thing we did a while back was we worked with Apple and on the Secret Life of Pets campaign, and we're able to partner with them and come up with creative, and then actually work with their Siri team, and actually, like the theme of the movie is, what are your pets doing when you're not at home? So we're able to get some Siri integration and get answers to those. So it's these things, and the way that came about is it's just very organic. It's hard to be like the things that break through. It's hard to say, here's the plan and here's how we're going to do it. And I mean, there was one experience, company will remain unnamed, but there was someone on more the commercial side. He's like, okay, marketing, let's just create a viral video. It's going to go viral. What do we need to do? It's like, oh, okay, well, yeah, it sounds easy, but you just never know what's going to become viral. So it's experimenting, it's trying new things, but it's kind of layering on the tried and true. And ultimately, like the sweet spot is, what do we know about our consumer? We also do segmentation, like I'm sure many of the folks that are on this call do as well. So we understand based on the segmentation for us, it's like, what are their movie preferences, and what are they doing, and just like the psychographics of it. And in addition to that, how we layer media onto that. Yeah, I mean, those are just some examples of some of the fun stuff we're dabbling with.
I love that. That's fun. How cool that you get to touch all of these iconic franchises and get to do so many interesting things, especially being in LA. I know we've got some time for questions. Just one more from me though, really around, and I don't think we discussed it, but I'm not going to really put you on the spot, so don't worry.
Okay.
Any surprises since you've been in this role at NBCU? What's kind of surprised you most?
Well, previously when I first started at the company, I was working on the distribution side. So I was heading up basically our partner marketing and digital distribution. And that was working with all the different accounts, like I mentioned. So I think one of the challenges that I experienced there was really just trying to own the consumer when you're not the point of purchase. I know it seems kind of silly, but just like the acquisition piece of it, and getting like engaging audiences when you're not, you'd think if you have like large franchises, there's going to be automatic built-in, people are going to be into it, but there's so many distractions, so much stuff that's going on that it's tough even partnering with some of these folks and really making sure people are engaged for the long term. One of the challenges for businesses where you have certain beats where you're launching something and then maybe it goes away for a little bit and you're coming back with it, a little bit like the film business, as opposed to if you have a product that's kind of that's evergreen. So right. I did an internship at Kraft long time ago, and I was working on Post cereals. Post is part of Kraft. I don't know if they still are, so forgive me if that's totally incorrect, but it was their
at the time
their line of Post Select cereals, and it's like evergreen. So I feel like you have a little more flexibility there because if something doesn't work and there's a little more time and the measurement is a little more clear on that end, whereas when you have something on like more entertainment, whether it's film or TV or what have you, it's a little more hit driven. So
sure.
It's you don't have as much time to change the product, to do as much research as you'd like to do, because you kind of have one shot at it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of the challenges. And that's what was, surprising to me, because it's such a creative process. Sure. And anything creative, there's going to be some gray to it, but that's what makes it exciting as well. So nothing against the Crafts and P&Gs of the world. I like, those are great companies, but it's just how we go to market is just different.
Totally. I mean, to that end, I would love to hear, I think test and learn is so important, right? I think, we're all doing it both internally within our own companies to learn more. And then obviously externally, obviously, like you mentioned, the window of promotion is just so much shorter and super valuable for many of your films. Can you talk a little bit about, if you're able to do much testing and learning in your current role?
We are, and this isn't just my current role, but even like back to when I was at Disney and when I was at Yahoo as well. A lot of the performance-based media we do, it's very much test and learn in terms of, trying to get a sense for what creative is working and what channels are working. So I talked a little bit about like the fragmentation in the space. We still have KPIs per channel, and we're constantly trying to kind of pivot across channels and in that respect, just to make sure that our campaign is being optimized and working. On the other hand, some of the like we talked about some of the various initiatives and the ideas and things that we're trying. That's full on test and learn. I think a good example is not us, but when you look at what I think it was Coinbase, they did the QR code for the Super Bowl. It was a Super Bowl spot, and the thing was just bouncing around. The QR code was bouncing around, and someone could have looked at that and been like, "Wow, that's kind of weird." What are you going to do that? Like, people are used to all these kind of cool creative spots and stuff like that. I thought that was awesome. It's like, talk about like kind of breakthrough, totally. Basic but yet breakthrough. So I feel like, it's kind of like the nature of the business right now. So it's just kind of an idea that you just never would have known what the results would have been. the great thing there also is that they're able to quantify impact. It's, they know the result of that spot.
100%, right? I think they broke the app store.
Yeah.
Or
So
the internet, yeah.
Yeah, I mean that whole DR piece of it is just, I mean, I love that. That's an area that I wish like we could do more of, at least just in general, like for my personal background. But yeah, the Coinbase thing, I mean, that's cool. I'd love to be in those rooms and hear those initial discussions
Totally.
and
Same.
be a
That was
fly on the wall.
the most, I think, memorable Super Bowl ad from this past year, of course, other than the halftime show.
Yeah.
It was so great.
And the other thing is, there's a lot of testing and learning, as marketers, like we talked about the metaverse, right? There's going to be a ton of testing and learning. Like we're going to try a bunch of activations and we're going to see what works and what doesn't. And we're talking to some folks there and who knows, but we're gonna go for it.
That's great. I feel like that's so exciting. And that's, what's the best part about digital, right? Is that things are always changing and there's always new things to try. I'm now questioning if I should just, be buying up some NFTs once I learn about them. So yeah, I think that there's so much change happening in the ecosystem right now. Anything else that you wanted to share, as kind of part of your journey, or anything else that you've learned, especially in digital, given that this is our future of digital conversation?
Listen, so I knew a long time ago that I wanted to be a marketer. There's something about like sales and marketing, about influencing people kind of at scale. And so my first job out of college was to go to a bank. And you may say, like, why would you go to a bank? Don't worry, I'll come full circle on like what this all means. It's like, why would you go to a bank? And it's probably, like, looking back on it, I really wanted to get exposed to different businesses, but I really wanted to know like the nuts and bolts of a company and campaign. And that's the numbers, and that's the data, and that's everyone uses that terminology. It's really so. You flash forward to where I'm at now in digital, and it's like the data piece. And it's one thing to say, oh, okay, this number is higher than this, but it's really important to kind of internalize all of the data holistically and kind of figure out what the path forward is. There's always going to be a meaning behind all the information you're looking at. So, how do we move that forward? But even if you're in a creative role, I just think having a sense for and the ability to interpret the data is really important. And again, I think not looking at just like a snapshot in time, but overall, what are the broader trends? Not just for marketing, obviously the overall business, but like given what we're talking about here, for marketing as well. So if there are folks on the call and they're like, oh, it's not really my job, I'm not, the analyst, or just not my thing, I would say that's an area where everyone needs to stretch themselves in the digital world and understand what it means, and everything associated with the consumer behavior behind it, implications to the creative side, and just recognize that it's iterative. So we're never going to be done.
That's right. Yeah, it's so important to kind of think about both, kind of the left brain and the right brain. Obviously we have our data and the analysis, but how people are reacting, right? Like what creative is actually working, I think is so important, and making sure those two kind of talk to each other is super important. That's great to hear. Anything else that you can share from sort of a creative perspective? I'm sure you get to do so many cool things creatively.
It's really it's really trying stuff. It's testing and learning. I mean, I can tell you after, we, like, even in my current role and even previously, like, we do a lot of brainstorms to get together, and the great ideas can come from anywhere. Like, truly great ideas can come from anywhere. Usually not from me, usually from people on my team or other teams. But and it's just throwing stuff against the wall and seeing what sticks. But so here's the caveat. But when you look at the overall marketing budget, and the way we like to think about it is certain percent, we like to think about, okay, that's like that's our innovation budget. we still need to deliver results. So anyone that says, okay, like, let's just test everything, that's just not going to happen. But making sure with everything you're doing, there's a certain portion of it where you're really reserving it. And that's kind of an area of focus for us to make sure that we're trying new stuff
I love
across the
that.
board.
Yeah, back to the testing and learning. That's awesome. A question has come in, so I want to ask this one from the audience. What practices and guidelines do your companies have in place to respect that relationship or avoid oversaturation? I imagine that's between the consumer and the brand.
Nothing in particular that I can think of. I mean, I think of our group in particular. Honestly, there's nothing I can think of, because our audiences to a certain extent are, there's certainly crossover, but they're different as well. So a good example at Nbcu, like Telemundo is part of our family. So if anything, like the audiences, there's a good opportunity to collaborate. It's actually our process internally. It's called Symphony. And just kind of how we work and leverage a lot of the data and the information we have. So I think it's more about collaborating more than anything. There is some stuff going on kind of on the corporate side that is more kind of ad sales driven. I don't know, honestly, I don't know enough about it to speak to it, and I wouldn't want to say the wrong thing. But in our smaller world, there's not a lot.
Gotcha. Yeah, and I would say too, from my end, in Moby's core business is really around users engaging with ads and apps, right? And I think that there's sort of that two-way communication street. And of course, when we have our SDK, our tech, and these 5,000 apps in the US, for example, the last thing we want is to make consumers upset. So I think we really partner with a lot of the app developers to make sure that we're running ads and slots that are in a natural content break, for example, or we're only running ads at a certain frequency that we know will delight users, as opposed to sort of make them frustrated within those app experiences. So I think making sure that you have learnings around what creative is working and what slots do well in terms of video or rich media or gamification, for example, I think is super important. That's kind of what we're doing at Moby.
Yeah, that's cool. I mean, there's definitely on our end, there are definitely shared learnings, but again, it's different because we have windows for our different releases, and at a certain point in time, we may be the only place where you can get it. So there's not a lot of competing media. And by the way, I didn't mention to you that I was looking back after we talked the other day, and I actually have an InMobi carabiner from like years ago. I have no idea how I got it, but anyway, we can talk about it that separately. But I thought that was kind of funny after we spoke about, InMobi, yeah, I got that. So.
Oh, that's so funny. Well, now we can go hiking, Ted, with our carabiners. That's great. I love it. We'll have to. I haven't seen any in our swag closet lately. I'll have to see if I can get myself one. Cool. Anything else, Evie, from the audience for questions? Okay, I think we've got it one here.
I just had one myself. Ted, you guys do such amazing creative work. And I know you talked a lot about engagement. Is there a campaign or a tactic that you've used over the last year or so that is one of your favorites for really proving out engagement?
Like one of the things I mentioned a little bit is, things like, well, it's two things. One is some of the trivia stuff. It sounds so kind of, old school, but it's kind of like a no-brainer because people, I mean, how many parties have you been to where it's like, oh yeah, who's the actor, or what are the things, or, what was that building called in that movie? And so those are things where people kind of want to almost, they want to show off, and it's fun. So I think those types of games in particular, and I think for us, just kind of more broadly, it's, thinking about all the different channels where we can kind of leverage what we're doing. So a good example is, so here's a plug. So, we have a slate of films coming up, and And we're looking at, again, this is one of those things I really want to talk about it, but I'll say just more generally, like the games piece of it, mobile games, online games, things like that. Like, how can we, there's a lot of stuff that's been done that's been really cool with, like, the Robloxes of the world, et cetera. Like, or, I can say that there are partnerships, that there are things we're doing with the Xbox team. So, like, what do we do there that's kind of fun and different and engaging? So kind of comes back to the whole gamification of it as well. So sorry, that's a long, kind of convoluted response to a very short question.
No, that's okay. I mean, I also love the discussion around the partnerships and things like that. And, I think your example is a little bit better than, what was it? A donut combo for National Mustard Day, thanks to French's Mustard. So there are some really weird, convoluted brand partnerships, but yours was a little less esoteric. So thank you.
Oh, sure.
Unless you're wearing a suit to go watch Minions at the theater.
There you go.
Yeah. Or at home for good family viewing, right?
That's right.
Wow. Okay. Robin, any final words?
This has been super fun. I think, I've learned a lot today, Ted. So thank you for all of the insights and candor. Really appreciate everything that you've brought to us today, and hopefully everyone else learned something as well.
Great. Thank you, Robin. And thanks to the Brand Innovators team. This stuff's always fun. And I appreciate you having me.
Okay, I think we're back. That was pretty funny because if you noticed, I was wearing a different shirt 2 seconds ago, and I was the MC on that previously recorded session with Ted Chi and Robin Myers. Now, I loved seeing that again. Ted talked about how he had always wanted to be a marketer, and so he started by taking a job at a bank so he could learn numbers from the ground up. And look at him now, an SVP at NBC Universal. And Robin was talking about numbers too. In Moby, they talk about how they're cognizant of frequency and hitting the right number of ads and repetitions. So thanks to both Ted Chi and Robin Myers of NBCU and in Moby for the gift of conversation that keeps giving. With a reminder that if you're not already streaming there, you can find all of those gifts of conversation back on our YouTube channel of Brand Innovators. It's really an amazing resource. Now, speaking of which, our next gift of thoughtful speakers comes to you from Cynthia Kleinbaum. She is Chief Customer Officer of Moneyline, and her conversation is being moderated by the always fabulous Kristen Dolan, VP of Innovation at Influential. They are one of our longtime partners and friends, and we're always happy when Influential is in the house. And I know that they're going to turn on their cameras and turn on their mics any second now. And like magic, there they are. Hello.
Magic. Is my background backwards again?
Background is correct. It just looks flipped to you, but you guys are perfect.
Oh, so it's mine backwards? Or it's okay?
You're perfect.
Okay.
Me too. So many ways. Have a good conversation.
It's very not intuitive.
I know.
For me, but if
it sees it perfectly.
Okay, fantastic. Well, thank you so much. And hi, Cynthia. Happy September.
Good to see you again.
Yeah, it's great to see you again. So yeah, for you guys tuning in, my name's Kristen and I'm joined by Cynthia. She's the CCO of Moneyline, a Fintech company named one of the most innovative Fintech companies of 2020 by Forbes and 2019's Best Digital Bank of the Year by Finovate Awards. So I'm so excited to jump in. Are you ready?
Ready.
Okay, great. So, well, we were talking yesterday about having spent majority of your earlier career in CPG and retail. So I'd love to hear a little bit more about what motivated you to change industries to fintech.
Well, many things. The first one is, this is the first time I work in a tech company for real. So if you look at my career, I started in CPG where you're pretty far from the customer because you're not really, it's not D2C. Then I moved to e-commerce, and now I'm in fintech. And while e-commerce, I was working in companies that were digitally enabled. I would say they were first retailers and then tech companies. And right now, it's the first time that I work with a tech team that is really running the show, and it's very different. Like, for example, we operate on a sprint basis. So just like every tech team that works in other companies, they have sprints and they plan what they're going to do for, in our case, it's 2 weeks, and report on A/B tests, performance, experiments that they're doing. We actually in marketing are doing the same. We're operating as if we were a tech team, and that's how we plan our experiments. So that was one thing. I wanted to work in a company that had this quality of tech leadership and tech talent overall. The second one was, I have never worked in fintech. My husband works in fintech. I started getting interested in the impact that money had in people's lives. And I couldn't think of anything more important, I guess, except for healthcare, something that impacts the life of people more than their relationship with money. And this opportunity came to me, and the vision of the founder, the vision of the leadership of really impacting and providing financial freedom through financial literacy, not just financial products, was very interesting to me, and I took it, and I'm super happy I did.
Well, I was going to say, you've touched on it within your answer. Do you have a favorite thing you've learned pivoting industries, anything that surprised you?
I mean, there's many similarities between any industry, right? And I consider myself a marketer of any industry. I don't know if I ever told you, but at some point in my career, I was doing marketing for a highway, and my KPI was traffic to the highway. Very different traffic.
Literally.
Yeah. So very, very random. So I think I can market anything. I have learned to put myself in the shoes of the customer, even if I'm clearly not a truck driver. I'm not the customer of that highway. But in any industry, I think there are similarities. Like, you can drive people to try your brand or your product, usually with an offer. Like, retailers do it, banks do it. But what makes somebody stay, it's usually the experience, right? Providing great experience in retail, in finance, that's what makes people stay loyal. So that's not different between the world that I came from and the world that I'm in. But when it comes to differences, of course, regulation is different in finance. But that's not really what makes it super interesting. What makes it more interesting, it's the richness of the data that we have. Like, if you think about it, when you're in retail and you get data, you're getting data on a very small fraction of what somebody sells. Even being at Walmart, like, people don't spend 100% of their wallet in Walmart. Sure. But when you get the layer of data of everything that people are receiving as payment, who's paying them, how much, like who's the employer, and how they're spending their money, you actually get a much better view of the person, and you can actually do so much more interesting marketing tactics because you know them so much better. So that has been surprising. I didn't think it was going to be so much more insightful.
Yeah, it's very robust data in fintech, I think. And so for me, coming over to Influential, my career has been at large holding companies. So I've usually just been dedicated to one or two accounts at a given time, and then really understand intimately, that brand story, their challenges and everything. And then coming over to Influential, it's really opened my mind into all types of business challenges across all verticals and types of solutions, and I see it all like a puzzle, and how can we help fit those missing pieces to create a full picture for brands. But I will say, pivoting to a more broader scope, the marketing fundamentals remain the same. So that, which is really interesting, and a lot of times strategies just lean on going back to basics and doing the basics well, and then building from there. So that's been really interesting for me too, in terms of
what I'm gonna recommend for you and anyone that's listening. There is a book called Range, and I can't remember exactly the tagline of the book, but it's something about this is a world for generalists. And I used to think you have to specialize. The best thing you can do in your career is specialize.
Yep.
And I didn't. I became a generalist. So I read that book to try to convince myself that it was a good idea to become a generalist.
Yeah.
And the author builds the case that it's very rare that like being a specialist in one industry or in one function, it's better. Even if you think about high-performing athletes, musicians, doctors, that if you are a generalist, you are much more able to do things differently and to become better than if you just specialize in one thing. So I am, just like you, I'm trying to use what I learned in retail, in CPG, bring it to finance, which gives me a little bit of I think a competitive advantage versus people that just have been doing financial services marketing forever. So I like my path, and I'm happy I made the switch to fintech.
Well, I'm happy because it brought us together. So I'm happy for that selfishly. So speaking of Moneyline, what's new at Moneyline and what's everyone getting excited about?
I mean, if you haven't, I mean, you haven't, but anyone else watching, if you haven't, download the app. And the first thing you're going to see, it's what's new. We are bringing on board content creators that are educating Gen Z and really the next generation of Americans on how to manage their money life, how to manage everything related to money. So in our app, unlike most financial services app, you will land on a feed more comparable to like an Instagram or a TikTok feed, where you can see all these content creators, what we now call finfluencers, giving you bite-sized tips on how to become more literate when it comes to financial decisions, and how to make the most out of your money, how to plan for future financial freedom. So that's like what we're evolving to go from a financial institution that is fighting for the transaction, come transact with us, come spend with us, come save with us, borrow from us, to come and become the owner of your financial future with us, and we will help you. So we're in I think it's a pretty big shift.
Yeah, my ears perked up when you said creator. So I was going to ask next, but you touched on it. The role, what role do finfluencers, right, these financial influencers, play for Moneyline, and how they help bring new people onto the platform? And I think brands that take risks and show real people with real stories will always find an audience that resonates on social, and therefore help drive and promote that action. And I think what you guys are doing with the data collection and content connection is critical, because it makes the customer interaction that much more impactful.
Yeah, like you touched on something, like these are real people. Mm-hmm. And when most people don't understand what's a mortgage rate, what's even basic tax terms. Literally 2/3 of Americans cannot understand the most basic financial terms. Mm-hmm. And when you have somebody that is a professional, sometimes it's daunting, and they explain it in terms that it's just really hard to understand. So we want to demystify those terms, and we want to show people that actually went through the same. I love the pieces of content in which you have somebody just like us that is going through the process of doing something that we will need to go through. Let's say that you need to apply for a mortgage, and they document themselves going through the process, explaining what they learned. And really, it's so much more impactful than having a financial advisor just like telling you words that it's almost like they're trying to make it hard, so you just want to give them the money and move on, right? It's like they make it hard on purpose.
It's funny. I want to touch on that. You said people, and you're calling customers people. so often, a quick anecdote, so often in this industry, we say users and we talk about users like, social media users, app users, this user, but they're people, right? They're not. So I like the phrasing there. It's semantics, but I think it's important to delineate because I think you're totally right. It's real people and we all have a financial situation. To varying, whatever that degree is, we all are in some stage or in need of some type of financial, product. So I think that's really impactful to refer to it as people. So,
thank you. I'll keep referring them as people. Human beings.
Human beings. So, well, that said, because we are in marketing and, the landscape is changing constantly. We're always getting hit with headlines, like the latest being like Chrome's cookies and, certain features going away or coming or being rolled out. So, and there are a lot of platforms vying for people's attention at any given time. And so how does Moneyline, you had mentioned it earlier, and we're going to click on all of those things like stickiness and financial literacy in a bit. But how does Moneyline shape the site and app experience to win attention from potential customers?
So really the recipe is aligning ourselves, the entire company, the product, the marketing team, and everyone to drive repeat behavior. One of our key metrics, which you don't see in financial services, it's monthly active users. And the equation of daily active usage over monthly active usage, which means how many people are coming to your app every month, but also what percentage of them are coming on a daily basis. And these are the KPIs that you would normally associate with Instagram or Facebook or any publication, right? Or even I imagine like Netflix looks at the same type of metrics. But banks, I don't think they're ever saying, how often does somebody come to our branch? So for us, moving away from the key KPI is transaction towards, we have another key KPI, which is engagement, has generated a shift in how we think, how we operate, what type of marketing campaigns and programs we launch, what type of product features we launch to drive that engagement. And because we have that very rich layer of data, we believe that we can actually personalize your experience much better. If you go to any of our competitors, like any social media, you will probably be able to find great financial literacy content. However, how do they know what you need? They don't know how much money you have, what's your financial situation, what you're on the market for. Of course, they have awesome algorithms. They do a very good job at personalizing your experience, but we have a layer of data that nobody else has that we will use to put something in front of you that will be useful for you in that specific moment of your money life. And we're hoping and we're working towards driving that repeat behavior through the data, the personalization, and the features in our app that make it very sticky.
Yeah, I think that's awesome. And I think Moneyline is well positioned to create those impactful personalized experiences, because even with the current product offerings available today, tied to that treasure, like you were saying, tied to that treasure trove of data that you have on your customers, that alone gives you the formula to create different permutations and test and learn around which product to which audience and which type of messaging, which creator, which type, which channels do we serve them on? I think that just opens you up to such a rich test and learn agenda, which gets me very excited as a data.
How do you guys do it? Can you tell us how you guys are approaching this cookieless future?
Oh, I can absolutely tell you this.
I didn't tell you I was going to ask you that.
I just worked on I actually just updated all of our collateral on this because after hosting a Brand Innovators event last week on the cookieless future, I felt it was timely to update our offerings. But yeah, I think so. Our core business, right, is the marriage of custom audiences, content, creators, and measurement. And so our sourcing tool is powered by IBM Watson. And so we have a proprietary sourcing algorithm that brings in what I like to call a mini Myers-Briggs assessment of creators and their profiles, in addition to a lot of the API connections that we have with our platform partners. And so we're able to kind of score, like assign a brand score to influencers to say, okay, for a given campaign, this list of creators has a propensity to perform well for you based on, this, and this. And then from there, we take those AI-informed insights and marry that to our strategic data partnerships that we have, which that can be a whole other session of, but we marry that to the strategic data partners that we have. And then that's how we develop high-value custom audiences for targeting. And so we're constantly iterating in terms of copy and audience to creator matching and A/B testing to understand, once we have everything in market, what is that ideal optimal output that yields the best ROI or whatever the KPI is. So we actually have a future-proof approach where, and like as we move into the cookieless future, where we have a test and control methodology where we're discerning lift based on the impact of the influencer marketing campaign. So yeah, we're excited. We've helped many brands. I think we service 60% of the Fortune 1000 and achieved their various goals to foot traffic, tune in-store sales, social commerce as well, which is getting big. So we have a pretty wide range of measurement capabilities that help us to tie back the ROI.
That's very cool.
Yeah, it was a lot. I'm sorry.
Yes.
I can't tell.
Cool. It's I mean, I think we have to try everything we can to approach this cookieless future.
Oh, sure. And I get, if you can't tell, I get very excited talking about the data side. But yeah, it's a very passion of mine. But I think, yeah, it's interesting too. I mean, every brand has a varying degree of where they sit in terms of tech stack and where they sit in terms of just progress. And so I love talking to fintech about this because the regulations have always been there. So that's why I feel Moneyline and other fintech companies, they're positioned well to future-proof against this cookieless future, because they have all of this first-party data that they're able to cultivate and kind of permeate into different or permutate into different combinations to make those personalized experiences impactful. Because like you were saying, right, these are people with real financial needs. And so, if they're coming to the site because the intent was, education on how to get a loan, but they're getting served tax.
Yeah.
And because it's contextually tax season, right?
Wow.
That's not helpful. And so that can turn away and gain market shares with your competitors.
Or even, I think, like being a responsible company that doesn't push you to be investing in crypto if you actually you're in debt, But
Right.
I mean, everybody, not now, but there was a time not long ago when everybody wanted to get on the crypto bandwagon, right? And it's not for everyone, and we want to help people make the right decisions so they can reach financial freedom. I was reading the other day, as I was doing some research, that 97% of employees spend time during the day, during their workday, either worrying about money or actively working on something to improve their money situation. And imagine how much money is in the system if we can actually, money in the system as in waste, if we can actually help people manage their money better, their life better, so they don't have to worry about that. There's
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Well, that leads in nicely to, I want to talk more about financial literacy. So I know that Moneyline's company mission is to close that financial literacy gap. And I saw the company recently made some strategic acquisitions that help bridge that data to content connection. How does data literacy feed into financial literacy for your clients?
It's similar to what I was saying before regarding financial literacy is available to anyone, right? But we use the data to make it more personalized.
Yep.
And the acquisition of Malka is giving us access to creating content that is in a format that is very relevant to the consumer today. We can't ignore the fact that people are consuming content and consuming financial literacy content in social media platforms. So we have to go where the the user is, where the customer is, where the prospect is. Our prospects are looking at TikTok and they're looking at Instagram to know what to do with their money. So the acquisition of Malka is allowing us to have, think about it as a vertically integrated financial service, which I guess vertical integration in my previous world was you would be the owner of the cotton field, and then you would produce cotton, produce clothing, and have the retailer, right? In this case, we have the relationships with those influencers that will post the content on platforms where customers will see it, where prospects will see it. But then that content also lives in our app. You will see it in a much more personalized and relevant way. And we are shortening the distance between either discovery, or maybe you already come with some intent, but you can actually transact. If we can teach you how to do something and then make it super easy for you to do it, you're more likely to take action than if you are taught something or you learn something online in a different platform, and then you have to take the extra steps to, okay, I just learned that I should be saving $5 a week so I can have some piggy bank in the future. If we teach you that and we're like, click on this button and automatically you're going to start saving, so much easier, it's more likely to happen. So we think it's a great combination of giving you the financial literacy that you need, but also making it super easy for you to take action.
Yeah, I love that. And when we were talking earlier, we were talking about that marriage of, so from the media, the paid media side, right? And you from the marketing side. So I believe that it's media's job, right, to get the potential customer to the site, and then it's the site's job to ultimately deliver, right, and do what you provide an easy, personalized experience, just like everything you're describing. And this is what gets me excited, because when those two stars align, in addition to like the audience target and like all the mechanics behind the actual paid side of the house, that just speaks volumes in terms of ROI potential. So I think, it makes such a difference, especially when there's so much noise in the space, and there's so much, on TikTok scrolling through, or Instagram scrolling through, and all these people offering up advice, gosh. And so, but there's so many distractions and noise out in the space. And so to efficiently find prospects, drive them to a site that offers them based on intent signals or known signals from first-party data collection, that's the goal.
And also, I think in this day and age, we have to be able to try to personalize as high in the funnel as we can, right? Like personalizing lower in the funnel is easier, because if you come with a lot of intent, we know what to put in front of you. If you come with some intent, it's more about personas, right? We can do some persona development and say we have these 5 type of customers, but personalizing or segmenting higher in the funnel, that's where companies like Influential come to help us really not have to choose one influencer. Let's choose one influencer, put all our money in that bucket, and just like see what we can do. So it's connecting that full funnel approach and trying to personalize it as much as possible, that we're seeing results, like good results.
Yeah, that's great. And I wanted to extend this a little bit into social responsibility. So talk to me about the role that social responsibility plays with Moneyline.
The main thing where you see it right now, which is like the more obvious place, it's in the investing side of our business. You can actually choose to invest in causes that you are aligned with, and in companies that align with your values. And I don't think this is something that's negotiable for the new era of financial services, commerce. The new generations are putting their money where their mouth is. I'm not super proud to say that I don't think my generation behaved that way. Like we used to say, yes, we care a lot about the world and ecology, but yet we loved fast fashion, right? So we didn't exactly put our money where our mouth is. We are seeing material decisions being made by the new generation of customers that signal that they really do care. There is an experiment, it's not from Moneyline, but an experiment that one of my business school professors did with Crate and Barrel, where they did an A/B test. 50% of the customers received a $25 coupon for their next purchase. The other 50% received a $25 coupon to donate to, there's an organization called Donors Choose, which I think it's focused on schools. It's something about education. But you could choose which charity to donate from Donors Choose. And the KPI was not just conversion, but retention, how quickly the person actually returned and became a loyal customer. It turns out that those that received the option to donate to charity returned faster and became more loyal than those that received the $25 off. And that just really clearly signals that your brand, aligning your brand with values, matters to the new generation. So that's one thing. Of course, our whole company, it's mission driven. Our whole business model is mission driven. It is about leveling the playing field, about providing the forgotten customer segment, the forgotten American, access to something that rich people have always had access to. There's so many people in the US that are either unbanked or underbanked, that traditional financial services companies have either not reached out to them or made it so expensive for them to get service that it doesn't make sense for them to engage. And it's unfair, honestly. Like, you're rich, you stay rich, and you're poor, you stay poor. Like, where is the American dream on that? So I think Moneyline's whole mission-driven vision comes to life on everything we do.
Yeah, I'm going to touch on diversity in a second. But on social responsibility, I think that's so important and something that I want to emphasize for those tuning in and those tuning in for the, video on demand later. The social responsibility piece, like people, I've seen stats to varying degrees on this, but they all basically say the same thing. And the last one I believe I saw was from Adweek, where they report, customers are very willing to align with brands that support their beliefs. And 78% of consumers said in this Adweek report that they made a purchase decision based on values in the past year, which is huge. So it speaks volumes that, brands should be really, concentrating on, or looking at, what are those values that we want to come across, and how can we align, with what we believe as a company, and then also what will resonate with our, customer base, because it really is all about connections at the end of the day. That's why we do what we do, making meaningful connections. But I wanted to touch on diversity, because fintech has historically been a male-dominated industry, and I'd love to hear more about what you are doing to drive diversity in your team.
It's true. I mean, there's a lot of men in the room, but there's an openness to have women in the room. I'm going to ask you a question. What percentage of the financial decisions in a household do you think are driven by women?
Ooh, okay. Let's see. 20%?
A little higher. A lot higher. It's 90%. Yeah. I think a lot of people believe that women make the purchasing decisions in terms of like groceries or furniture, but not the financial decisions. It turns out it's 90%. I think it's a number from Forbes, from a survey that I did not long ago, which I think it just shows you that if you have rooms full of men making decisions of what to offer to women, it's a little hard. I think having a woman in the room helps a lot. We do bring a different perspective. What am I doing? I try to hire the best possible people, but I do try to at least recruit a diverse set, have people from all genders and age and nationality and like obviously ethnicity come through the doors to apply for jobs and have a fair shot. And my team is pretty diverse in everything that I just told you. I have like a pretty diverse team. But at Moneyline, we're taking steps. We're being pretty intentional about having programs that will make women get to the top. We have an employee like group called Women Who Roar, and actually we have a podcast that you can like go and download the podcast. I think we have just one season, but it's available. And the Women Who Roar group is setting up different coaching and mentorship programs for women in the organization to help each other grow. I think that just being at Moneyline gives the more junior women a little bit of like they see me and they think, okay, I can get there, which is good, but it's not good enough. So I actually want to spend time with our rising stars, helping them get there. So we're putting together a mentorship program, coaching opportunities, and overall creating an environment where if you're a woman, you know that you can succeed here. And having a woman that is Latina, that has 2 young kids, being in the executive team, I think it's something that is inspiring to them, and they see that they can get here. So
absolutely. And I also think if, with the products itself, I mean, the financial literacy efforts that you guys are making to ensure that underrepresented or marginalized communities are able to access and receive education on their financial situations, or if just for general learning, I think that speaks volumes, right? It's the actions that the company is taking too, and that I think is well represented.
But you're touching on something that I'm sure it's part of your world too.
Sure.
We choose, and we're choosing more and more influencers that show that diversity.
Yes.
The likelihood that you are going to follow a influencers that looks like you, they still have to be aspirational, right? You have to be able to imagine yourself in their shoes. So that diversity is super important in the marketing we do.
Oh yeah, and as an influencer marketing company, we have a responsibility to be a force for good in the social media ecosystem. And our company's mission is to provide opportunity in the form of equality and equity to marginalized, underrepresented communities in the broader creator economy. And as a result of our efforts, over 90% of our campaigns actually feature a diverse creator.
Yeah,
we're still making that stats are from 2021. We're still making, and we're still growing and increasing those numbers. But it is really important.
Once this is not about Moneyline, but I used to work at a different company before where we wanted to be diverse in our marketing, but it was hard because we would do casting and we would get like skinny white men through the door. So we actually had to be so intentional that we had spreadsheets of what we wanted to show. And we wanted to show diversity in like ethnicity, but we also wanted to show body diversity. So we were like, okay, what are the sizes we want to show in our catalogs, in our marketing? Because it's really easy to just do the same thing over and over again. We were intentional about like holding ourselves accountable for showing that diversity.
Oh yeah, at Influential too, I say so. Innovation, diversity, equity, inclusion, all permeate all aspects of it. So it's not just like one thing, right? Because you even said it's like so it's focusing on diverse creators, but all types of diversity. And then also, we have our company programs and safe spaces and events that we host. And then for me, leading the innovation department, we have a dedicated team focused on innovation, but we seek perspectives beyond those focus area leads because we strongly believe a good idea comes from anywhere. So just because we have a lead for Web3, creator commerce, live shopping, sports, et cetera, you name it, doesn't restrict work from those specific individuals. We're constantly bringing in company perspectives, and that's honestly where the magic happens, when we get the most perspectives on an idea or how to roll something out, different features. That's where we find that's where we do our best work.
That goes back to my first point about being a generalist.
Yes.
You bring other perspectives.
Oh, that was a great full circle moment. Thank you.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't think we have any questions in the chat. So I
see something in the chat. Is it a question? No. Brilliant.
No, it's asking if there are any.
Okay. No questions.
Yeah,
okay.
But we'll keep going, until we get kicked out. So Let me scroll through to see what else we have. So, I guess, one of the things I'll ask you is what's on the horizon for Moneyline?
So much, but we are going to help more and more Americans reach financial freedom. So in the horizon is just bringing that vision to life. And I hope that when people go, like start making going to Moneyline part of their daily routine and their thumb, how your thumb, you take your phone and suddenly you're like checking Instagram, checking TikTok. We want to be the place that people go once a day to become more empowered to find that financial freedom. That's in the horizon, and I don't think it's very far. I think we can achieve it. I think we have what it takes.
I agree. I'm excited for Moneyline's continued growth, and I'm rooting for you guys. And
thank you.
You certainly have the right strategies in place, and particularly, and that I'm passionate about this, an operationally efficient tech stack, which gets my stamp of approval. So,
yeah.
So I'm excited for that.
Yeah. I think the something I'm excited about that we're working on, it's not my team, but we're a stakeholder, is we are creating what's going to be probably the best in the industry, CDP, customer data platform. And for those that don't know, like a CDP collects data points on customers, so then you can use them in as real time as possible in as the appropriate channels. So to give you a specific example of fintech, when people are looking for a loan, they may need the loan immediately. They may actually be looking for money to put food in the table for their family. So the real timeliness of that data is super important. Having the pipes connected so we can act on that insight is super important. And being able to then activate, put the message in front of you, give you your loan, and then feed that data platform. So we have all, like, we know what you engage with, we know if you took the loan. It's key. And we are in a day and age where the technology is actually allowing us to do something that 10 years, 5 years, 2 years ago wasn't possible. So I think we are building the customer data platform of the future at Moneyline.
I think the ability to predict customer behavior is huge. And that's great. I mean, last week I moderated a Brand Innovators event on the cookieless future. And that was essentially the thesis of the day, which was the importance of cultivating a strong customer intelligence, because the more holistic customer profiles you have, that allows for better prediction on your customer behavior, which then subsequently fuels your customer experience, that personalization, which will hopefully yield not only ROI, but higher lifetime value.
You have to be able to predict if you don't want to continue paying Google forever, right? Like, of course, if you want to have a search ad and when somebody's ready to ask, like to search for something that you have, sure, then you're paying the rent. If you can predict what people are going to need and then put the message in front of them at the right time, then it's when the magic happens.
Oh, absolutely. And it also helps understand, the why, like what motivates your customers too, which is so important, because that just helps to strengthen that connection that you have and their loyalty, right, to the platform.
Exactly. Absolutely.
Awesome. So I have like deeper questions that we won't have time to go.
We'll have to talk offline. Let's have
we'll have to talk offline. I don't see any questions in the chat though, so let us know if we need to keep asking, or
I think we're done.
Yeah.
You can have 2 more minutes, not maybe enough for that deep question.
Yeah, I have a lot of deep questions, but Cynthia, any final thoughts to leave us with?
Well, I think for anyone in the financial services industry, I just want to encourage everyone to really recognize the role that we play in people's lives, and think about how deep the work that we do, how much can it influence somebody? Because most Americans are in a vicious cycle where they don't have financial health, which makes them more stressed out, which prevents them from actually being able to plan. Like if you're stressed out and you're worried about money, you can't actually focus on planning for your money future, which means you're back to being stressed, and it's this vicious cycle which is very hard to get out of. So if you guys work in the financial services industry, regardless of where you are, really take it upon yourself to help others. It's gonna come back as goodwill. Customers are going to become more loyal to you, but you're also gonna be hopefully doing something that feels like it's there's a bigger purpose than just getting the transaction, getting the average revenue per user up. So I just want to encourage everyone to think of yourselves more than just marketers of financial services, but we have a bigger purpose.
Well said.
Fantastic, you two. That was a great conversation.
Thank
Wow. Now I want to ask the audience too. Did you catch the 2 references to 90%? Little pop quiz. Okay. Cynthia taught us that I think it was around 90% of financial decisions are made by the woman in the household.
Yeah.
Women who roar, indeed, right? And so that's one reason why Moneyline taps a range of influencers. And yay, Kristen reminds us that at Influential, 90% of their campaigns utilize diverse influencers. So that, that was such a well-rounded conversation with really, really great takeaways. I want to thank you both.
Thank you. Thank you
so much.
All right. Well, Mindy Perry had posted something in the chat that we didn't get to. She asked about to speak to what it's like to be an executive mom. And I'm sure that many people can relate to that. Perhaps that might be something that Erin Levzo, our next speaker, might be able to address. She is the VP of Marketing Technology for Del Taco Restaurants. Her conversation is being moderated by Blake Vita, who is the Director of Marketing for Gen Video. Hello. Hi, Blake.
Hello, hello.
Your lovely face, and we're waiting for Erin's camera to come on, and it's just a matter of seconds, I think.
A matter of seconds. I'm just happy I got the background to work, honestly. That's my win for the day.
It's very tricky. Every time we send those out, you have to remember that it's a mirror image. So all of our speakers are saying, am I backwards? But you are fabulous, both of you.
Thank you.
Good to see you. All
Good to
right.
see you as well.
Have a great conversation, Erin and Blake. See you in 40 minutes.
Awesome. Sounds great. And I'm so happy to be here. Like you said, I am Blake Vita. I'm the Director of Marketing for Gen Video. For those who haven't heard of us, we're a social commerce platform that ties influencer marketing into the e-commerce world with sales tracking and retail syndication and other creative methods. I'm honored to be joined by Erin Levzo. Erin, do you want to give a little intro?
Sure. Erin Levzo, Vice President of Marketing and Technology at Del Taco Restaurants, recently acquired by Jack in the Box.
Amazing. And yeah, today we're talking about C-suite marketing leadership. As most of you already know, this is a perfect topic. I don't think we could have a better speaker in Erin, and I'm really excited to go through some of these questions with you guys. This is a 40-minute session, so if anyone has any questions throughout the entire session, feel free to put them in the Q&A. We'll probably talk around for 30 minutes, and we'll look at any audience questions during the meeting. Then afterwards, we'll hopefully only focus on that if anyone has any questions. Well, Erin, I would love to kick things off. So just the general theme for everyone watching for the questions today, it's going to be around just general like best practices and lessons learned in the C-suite and marketing leadership role. I think Erin's going to have some very good inputs on these particular questions. So that's kind of where we're focusing on. But again, we're wanting to be able to have the audience gear the conversation in whatever direction they want. So feel free to ask any sorts of questions that don't have to do with these particular topics. So I'll start off, Erin, with what are the hidden qualities of an effective leader in your opinion?
That's a good question. So I think we look a lot at the hard skills when we look at leaders, but not always the soft skills. Soft skills being empathy, connection with people, communication. And for me, those are really, really important. And the leaders that I role model myself after, but also the leaders that I know even at a young age were strong in my life. And I think of it, so my degree is in theater, and people always go, how do you use that? Well, I use it quite a lot of different ways, but in this case, they teach you those soft skills. They teach you that empathy and working with all different types of people and accepting everyone. And I think those really come to life in leadership qualities that kind of create the leaders that rise to the top.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a very, very good point to bring up. And a little bit of background around me, I think we talked about this actually a little bit, Erin, is I used to play poker professionally. And that's one of the first things you learn in poker is play the player, not the cards, right? So, and it's the same thing in business. And, you know, you bring theater into your business world. I bring poker into my business world. You have to know who you're talking to, you know, not only in the sales role, because that's talked about a lot, right? People have different types of sales buying personalities. If someone's more analytical, speak about the numbers, vice versa. But it happens in everyday marketing life as well. You know, you want to know who your audience is. You want to know how to speak to them, what they care about, and how to convey that information to really, you know, make people care. A lot of marketing material nowadays is just spewed out to everyone like, oh, we're running X amount of Facebook ads and we have this amount of audience, whatever. A bunch of people are doing the same thing, but can you captivate your audience? When they see your ad or when they see your email, are they really paying attention? Are you speaking the language that they want to read when they read your email or whatever it might be? So definitely a very good point to bring up. Well, for you, Erin, what is your mentorship leadership style and has it developed over your different roles? I know you've had a couple of different roles that in the past few years.
Yeah, so I've worked as a leader in lots of different areas. I've been in HR, talent development, all the way through retail. Once I fell into marketing, casinos, retail, restaurants, hospitality across the board. And my leadership style continues to change only because I continue to grow as a leader. I think the moment we stop growing in anything we do, we've failed. You're going backwards if you're not going forwards, right? And so for me, it's all about how do I continue to grow as that leader? So the leader I was early on, I made a lot of mistakes, right? Like I thought I had to be the smartest person in the room. I thought I had to control everything. And it turns out to be a leader, it's really about lifting others up and letting them speak and letting their voice be heard. And it took me quite a while to figure that out. And with each position I've taken on takes a different type of leadership style from me, right? I don't lead anyone the same way. And I think that's been important to learn as well. And what works for some doesn't work for others. And the other thing I've learned through growing as a leader is to be my authentic self. And if I show you what my heart looks like and what my goals are, then you're going to show me what your heart looks like and what your goals are as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's a really, really, really good point to bring up is people respect people who are themselves. You know, everyone makes mistakes, especially in leadership roles. Like you say, you're not doing your job as a leader if you're not learning from your mistakes, or you're not making things that require more thought. If you're talking with a group of people and everyone expects you to know something, to your point as well, and you don't know something, then it's important to say like, hey, I'm going to be leading this project. I don't know exactly what the best way to do this is, but let's work as a team to research the best way. I don't know it already, and that's not an issue. I know I'm in the leadership role because we can figure it out, and we can do some research, and we can do some A/B testing, and really just see not only what works in the general industry, but what works for our company. There are things that could work for our company or our industry that could be totally different for us. So no matter what amount of research we do, we still have to do some testing, and we still have to do some research on our end to really figure out the best way to move forward. Awesome. Do you have any tips? Oh, this is my favorite question. Do you have any tips around cross-department leadership and communication?
I think you have to over-communicate. So people think that I told you something so you know it. And that's not how communication works. And the best way I liken it to is like the biggest cross-department I have at my house is my children, right? They all have their own department, it seems like, and being able to communicate to each one of them effectively means I communicate differently to each one of them based on how they learn, but also over communicate, right? Because as a parent, how many times have I said, I already told you this. Why don't you understand? Like, I already told you this. And they're like, I don't think you did, Mom. I'm like, okay. So same idea with cross departments and teams. You are over communicating, right? Not just an email. Some people it doesn't sink in, right? You need to talk about it, and you need to talk about it at length, especially if it's a big piece of information or if it's through change management. So the other thing too with cross departments is bringing people together and understanding the why behind everything. And we've heard about this for years, that people want to understand the why and not just the statement or the thing they're doing. But we don't always still do it. We assume people know the why instead of re-explaining, hey, I'm asking for this, or we need to do this, or we need to push this forward. And here's why we're doing this, or why I feel I'm doing this. And then hear from them why they feel they're doing something.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's something that I've learned in my years in the influencer marketing industry is that context is king, especially when you're working with, like you're saying, with, cross departments. When you're talking to the engineering team, giving them context as to why you're asking for something that needs to be built is going to make all the difference in not only them being able to do the project correctly, but being able to do it in a timely manner. It's going to have, if they know why the project is being made, there's going to be less rounds of edits because, they're going to actually know like what the client is going to want to see or what the influencers are going to see, or in any industry, it's the same thing. Like you're saying, context is 100% king, and making sure people know the why is such a good point to bring up. And something I want to bring up as well, and I'm not sure if it's something that you've experienced specifically, Aaron, is when you're talking cross-communication between departments, the client service and the sales team are going to have a very much of a different communication style. You're saying to over-communicate, 100% true. It's also style of communication, talking to people like that who are more outward focused, as compared to like an engineering team that are more analytical, usually more introverted, and just require a different sort of communication style than someone who's more client facing or outward focused.
Yep, absolutely. And especially with engineers, I've found that, or a lot of technologists, first of all, I scare them because I am a little bit out loud in my energy. And so again, for them, they just want to know, what do you need from me? And when is it needed by? And sometimes they want to know why we're doing it, but for them, I still give them that information, but just what do you need and when do you need it by? Versus like you said, the sales team, the client service team, it's all a very different communication style, but it still goes back to, what do you need? When do you need it? And why are we doing it?
100%. Exactly. Well, moving on here, do you have a mentor or leader who has influenced you or guided you throughout your career?
Yeah, so I have a lot of mentors and leaders that have guided me. David Norton, who used to be the CMO at Caesars Entertainment, was one of my first mentors, regardless of if he knew it or not. A lot of times the person looking up to someone or learning from someone doesn't always raise their hand and go, hey, I've been watching you, right? And I always think as great leaders, people are watching us all the time. Or as poor leaders, they're watching us all the time and they're deciding, yes, I want to be like that, but you know what? No, I don't want to be like that. And then Bobby Shaw wrote a leadership book for restaurants called Cutting Onions. He was the CEO at Freebirds when I was there, and he's absolutely wonderful and the type of person that you want to follow. And I say that because he's a big believer in Gallup Strength Finder. I'm a big believer in Gallup Strength Finder, which is leading people from their core strengths, right? Everybody's different. Let's love on the inclusiveness of the diversity and then build on it, right? So I'm not going to ask you to do something that is not innate to your nature and you're not incredibly good at. Let's take those peaks that you already have and rise them up, versus if we spend all of our time focusing on someone's weaknesses, it's going to feel like it would be like asking Michael Jordan to be a great singer. To be fair, I have no idea if he's a great singer. Maybe he is, but we want to do that, right? Like, he's good at basketball. Let's focus on that and strengthen that and create to cultivate that, versus cultivating something that maybe he's just not innately good at. And then creating teams of people who are innately good at different things.
Absolutely, 100%. And you know how I can tell how like truthful you're being right now is you can hear the inspiration when you're in your voice when you talk about these people who have inspired you and who have influenced you throughout your life. And it's the same thing with me with someone I'm working with actually right now, our chief growth officer at Gen Video. His name is Larry Beeman. He's an absolute titan in the marketing industry. When I worked at my first role in IZEA right out of college, we worked together a lot, and I could tell that he was going to be the person that is going to be able to give me like leadership and is going to be able to guide me through the different career decisions I have to make in the future. You know, when you first graduate college, you're still kind of lost. You got a job at a company, you're in marketing, you're doing what you want to do. But college to a real job is a very different experience. And having someone there to kind of show you the ropes, like, this is what matters, this is what you should focus on, this is the career path I've chosen. Whether you want to take that same career path, up to you. But this is, you know, what's working for me, and maybe it's something to look at. So it's just so important to have someone like that in your life. And it can be hard to find those types of people sometimes. I was lucky. Larry worked at my company. But finding people who are going to be mentors to you can be a bit of a challenge for some people. And it's something, I guess, Erin, how did you meet your mentors? Did you just come across them randomly, or?
They were both from work. However, I would say the word mentor is just a scary word, right? When people go, who are my mentors? Like, it just sounds scary. People are like, oh man, I need a mentor. How do I go find one, right? Versus just being like a guiding light and like, here, I want to help. I like helping people. People need help, right? Like, and so therefore, by default, we can call it mentor. You can call it whatever you want. But for me, I think now I mentor a lot of women in our space. And one of the things I've found is after mentoring like one or two, and I keep using leading, helping, whatever you want to call, having conversations with when they have questions. But after working with a few women, they all spread my name out there. And they were like, oh, you should meet Erin. You should meet Erin. And that's how they found me. But for me to find mine, it wasn't a thing, I think, when I started my career where someone went, you need to have a mentor. It was just, hey, he's really good at his job and I like what he's doing and I want to do that too. I'm going to go ask him how I can do that, right? Like, it was that, it wasn't the thought process of, I never walked up to someone and went, you know what, I need a mentor. I'd like that to be you. It was just, I want to be like you. I want to be like Mike, right? Let me go follow that, figure that out, and start asking questions.
Love that. Absolutely. 100% agree. Tell us about a proud moment in your career and why it was important to you.
I've had a lot of proud moments. Most recently, last year, we launched Delia Rewards, and that was a big undertaking, and it took tons of cross-functional teams as well as my team. And it was very exciting for the Del Taco app and the first ever loyalty program. So it was a very proud moment to see it kind of come to life and see all the people that it took to do it. Again, I'm very big into like everybody has a seat at the table. And then like, if I went all the way back, it would be, when I worked at MGM Resorts in Vegas, we had to go through this diversity class. It was called diversity. It was about leadership and cultivating different mindsets. And at the end, everybody in the class, through all different industries, like we all worked in casinos, but all different areas of the casino, all different age ranges, ethnicities, could vote for someone who they felt like had come a long way through this intense training. And they all voted for me and I received this Warrior Award. And I was like, I didn't do anything. And they were like, you were there to help everyone. You literally lifted, and you had to like lift bodies through ropes. It was very intense. But like, they were like, you were always there figuring out how you could help lift someone up. And that, I think, was my most proud moment, because someone, like, to me, it's just natural. Like, if you need help, I'm going to help you. But people looked back and went, no, that's special. Like, that's different. Outside of that, it's really helping the women that come to me and ask me for advice. It's being able to sit down with them and go, all right, here was my journey. I don't know how that helps you, but I'm happy to answer any questions you have, right? Or when they ask me, like, should they be negotiating at their job offer? And I'm like, yes, you should. You should absolutely do that. And they're like, well, shouldn't I just be happy with what I receive? I mean, you can be, or you could just ask for the next thing and see if they say no, right? Like, it's things that I thought that I learned along the way, I forget that other people don't know. So being able to help them, I think it has made me incredibly proud, and it's things that make me very happy and fulfilled to do.
That's amazing. And I think it just speaks to your personality as, like, I didn't do anything. I don't know, like, why I'm getting this, is it a Warrior Award you said?
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't understand why I'm getting this. And everyone's like, you did all these things. You're like, this is just who I am as a person. And I think that's probably a huge reason why you're in the position you're at today, is because that's just your personality and people look up to you naturally. And you might not know how many people that you're actually a mentor to. And people probably tell you that all the time, but it's just a really, really great personality trait that, when someone actually gives you recognition for it, I can see why that was one of your top moments for sure.
Well, thank you.
Well, great. Let's move on. As a leader in the ever-growing marketing space, how do you stay on top of industry news? Okay, I want to preface this question. So with this, my inbox is full all the time. I cannot imagine what your inbox looks like with people trying to send you news and updates and like, hey, this is what our company has going on. So how do you filter through what matters to stay on top of industry news and to kind of stay in the know of what matters to you?
I wish I had like an amazing answer where I was like, I read this every morning and I know everything, but I don't. I have a lot of newsletters that come in, and if it catches my attention, I read it. If I see something that someone else is doing, I start asking questions. I do attend conferences and webinars and things like this where I can learn, and like just picking up nuggets, even sometimes having podcasts on in the background, because like who has time to listen to a full podcast without anything else happening in their life? Not me, I don't. But like being able to listen to like a nugget and being like, I don't know what that means. I need to go research that, right? I think not only is that how I've continued to grow as a leader and practitioner, but how I still grow. And it's things like when someone says a word in a meeting and I'm like, I don't know what that word meant. Like, and that still happens all the time. And I'm like, hold on, Google, thank God you exist, right? Like, I don't know what my parents still have Encyclopedia Britannica. Like, maybe that's what they did when they didn't know a word. But like, I honestly, that's how I research everything and continue to ask questions. I think I get every newsletter in the world, it seems like, into my inbox. I don't read them all, but I try to like read the ones that catch my attention, or at least read the headline. And then if it keeps going from there, be like, all right, I should read this. If it's more than a paragraph, chances are I'm not going to read your email or the article.
So that's going back to Larry. That's like one of the first things he told me, because I eventually transitioned to sales for a little bit. He's like, do not send people paragraph emails. They're not going to read it. They do not care. Bullet out 3 points, things that are important. Say, are you free for a meeting? And then you talk about it on the meeting, but do not send paragraphs and emails. And now that I'm in this role where people are sending me those paragraph emails, I'm like, oh my God, stop sending me essays. I do not want to read this.
Not only do I not want to read essays, but like now there's like tricks that people like, and no, I love a good salesperson. Like, don't get me wrong, like love them. But when you send me an email and you're like, hey, missed you on our call. We never had a call scheduled. But now I'm like panicking because I'm like, what do you mean you missed me? What call did I miss? And I'm like researching the person and I feel horrible about it. And then I'm like, oh, this was a like ploy to try and get me to respond to them. And like, this is happening more and more in my inbox where I'm going like, I feel horrible, but it's not my fault. It's a ploy to get me to respond, to have this interaction. And I just don't get it. Like, that must be working for them, but it just drives me nuts.
That sounds awful. I've never had someone do that.
It's happened so many times recently. Or they'll say like, hey, I saw, like, they'll stalk me somewhere else because like, you know, we all have social lives, and they'll go, oh, I saw this. I wanted to talk to you about that. And then I realize as I'm reading, I'm like, oh, this was a ploy too. Like, but it's really more about like, if you can make a genuine connection somehow, you're going to get a lot farther than using some of those ploys or the paragraphs or anything like that.
I cannot believe that just straight up lying to someone has been working for some people. I like, you're saying it must be working because they're still doing it, but yes. Oh yeah, we had this call. No, we didn't. Oh yeah, my bad. But hey, do you want to have a conversation? Maybe buy my stuff? Absolutely not. Like, go away. What's wrong with you? Oh, that's so funny. Okay, quick note on your response to the last question. So you said you pay attention to the newsletters that catch your attention. You mentioned headlines. Is there anything else? This is a selfish question because I make the newsletters for Gen Video. Is there anything else that can like really catch your eye on a newsletter, or is it mainly just keeping it short and sweet, having a good headline and going?
I don't know. Like, I'm probably your lowest common denominator. So like, it is pictures and bullets and lists. Like, if you just say, here are the top 5 things, I'm like, oh, I can read that. Like, I can consume that. And that's why I say, like, I'm sure there are people much smarter than me reading these newsletters and they're like, yes, I'd love to read this long article. I'm not that person. I'm like, is there a cool picture? Is there a top 5 list? Then I'm in. Like, all right, give me the soundbite real fast. But no, other than that, that's it.
Absolutely. Okay, got it. Noted down. All right, moving forward here. Individual contributors that are amazing at their jobs but don't want to take leadership paths are essential to any company. Mm-hmm. So I guess for you, how do you bring the best out of those individual contributors who are a huge asset to the company, but they might not want to take leadership roles as is kind of the norm of what is expected?
So I think it would be the same as how I would work with anyone, which is situational leadership, which means figure out what fuels them. What fuels them? I used to work next to this woman who worked at the same job, same place, same desk for 40 years. 40 years. She loved cats. It was cool. We had a lot of pictures of cats. It was awesome. I had a lot of conversation around it. Not a big cat fan, but it fueled her. So I would buy her pictures of cats. Anyway, she had no interest in moving up the career ladder. She was great at her job, amazing at her job. And every couple years, someone would come to her and go, "You don't want to move up?" And she'd go, "No, I'm good." And they were like, "Well, what are your aspirations career-wise?" She's like, "This, like, I'm very, very happy." And people couldn't comprehend it. And it was like, why look a gift horse in the mouth, right? Like, this is great. She loves her job. She continues to want to do her job. She does her job as an A+. Let the woman be, right? Continue to thrive. She loves cats. Let's make sure she has all the cat pictures she wants, or whatever it might be, right? And that's how I think about anybody. Figure out what fuels them. Figure out what drives them. Some people, like I've had employees that, you know what? They'll give you 110%, but on Tuesdays, they just want to go to like daddy and donut class with their daughter, right? Daddy, daughters, and donuts. And I'm like, okay. But if I stopped that person from doing that and they missed that hour in the morning of that, they might not be as great of an employee. You figure out what fuels them, you figure out what drives them, and then you allow for that to happen. And you create that flexibility in their lives. And if driven by wanting to move up or moving into a leadership, you cultivate that. If driven by, hey, I just want to make sure my family's okay and this is what's going on, guess what? I'm going to take 110% interest in your family and what's going on there too. I want to know what's happening with the kids. But it's whatever drives that human, that person, to continue to do their best work.
I absolutely love that. I think we're taught from a very young age to be like, yeah, the goal should be to graduate college, move up the corporate ladder, and eventually own your own business, own your own company. And
right.
People go through school, including myself, with that notion. And I know a lot of people who have started down that path and are very unhappy in some higher up management roles. They're like, you know what? I don't really want to run a team, but now I'm in this great position. And, you know, of course, they have a good salary and all this stuff, and they're happy in that sense. But when it comes to actually, you know, wanting to go in day to day, they're like, you know what? Like, I might have been more happy just being an individual contributor. And I actually know a couple of people who have left very high up positions to go back and not restart, but just kind of reposition themselves in the company, even if that means, you know, going quote unquote down the corporate ladder. It doesn't really matter, because to your point, it's what fuels them, it's what makes them happy, and it's what they want to do, and they don't necessarily want to be in a leadership role, which is totally fine.
Exactly.
Well, what about you, Erin? Did you always want to be a leader? I guess, did you find that out in a certain point during your journey, or like from the moment you started, you're like, I want to run everything?
Yeah, no, absolutely not. When I was little, my parents said, because I was like, I'm going to be an actor. And my parents were like, you're going to be poor. I'm like, okay. But they were like, you should be a lawyer. You really like to argue with people. I'm like, okay, thanks, Mom. But as I grew in my college degree, was doing theater, I naturally was the person, like I was the bossy girl, right, in class. And they'd be like, Erin, calm down, lower your voice, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, what? But now, I mean, it took us years to figure out that's not being a bossy girl, that's being a leader, right? So as I've grown through my career, it's been natural for me to go, I want to help. I can help corral all these people and figure out what our common goal is. It was never like, I want to be the line leader. It was more so of, where are we going? How are we going to get there? And let's bring all the people together to help them get there. And that, I think, innately is what a great leader is. I never thought about it like that. I thought about it as a shared goal and a shared vision. And I got to be part of helping people get there. And it just so happened that I could connect with all these people to help them with this shared vision. As a leader, it's doing the exact same thing every single day and understanding the person as a human and how we get to the goal that we set out to do. That's why I've worked in lots of different industries across my time, is because if you're a good marketer, if you're a good leader, you can market and lead anything. And it doesn't have to be like, I went from Vegas vacations, which was like selling the dream, right, to selling chicken wings at Wingstop, like very different. And people are like, oh man, that must be so hard. No, if you understand why someone does something, why someone chooses something. The woman before me spoke and talked about how 90% of the decisions were made by women. They have the R&D to understand that. If you understand who's making the decision, why they're making the decision, your job becomes very easy. And then what you're doing is cultivating the people to help create the magic to get the customer to make the decision.
You guys remember at the beginning of this conversation when I said Erin was the perfect person to have on for the C-suite marketing leadership? Do you guys believe me yet or what? She is amazing. Yeah, what a good answer. That is so true. And I was getting like Wolf of Wall Street vibes. Like you sell anything to anyone because you know how to, all these skills that we're talking about throughout this entire call, they all cultivate into one. You know how to lead a team, you know what drives people, and you know how to speak to different people on a team, and you know how to speak to the people who are going to buy your product or your chicken wings or your vacations, whatever it might be. You can sell anything and you can market anything if you know your buyer and if you know how those people want to be informed of what you're trying to sell. So once you have that stuff down, which it seems like you very much do, then it's just streamlined from there and it makes it a lot easier. I do want to stop right here. We have a couple more questions on our end that we can go over, but I do want to see if there are any audience questions. Right now, I'm not seeing any in there, but take this time, guys. If you heard anything from Erin or myself that you have any specific questions on, feel free to put it in the Q&A widget that I have open right here. How nifty is this? This is so cool.
Feel free to ask anything you want.
Absolutely. Let's see here. We have something in the chat. Oh, it's just, or you're just being quoted already. Love that. Amazing. Okay, well, I guess as everyone goes in and puts all their questions in, we can we can go on to the next question that we have on here. What is the most important lesson that you've learned in your career as a leader in the space?
That it's not about me. that it really has nothing to do with me. And I think that early on was something I learned in acting, but didn't realize that it translates to everything else in your life. Like, same with being a great mom, like has nothing to do with me, like has everything to do with my kids. And I think that's really important, that my job is to help others. It, again, doesn't have anything to do with whether or not I'm getting fulfilled. Now, it helps that it fulfills me to help others, but that's what a good leader does. And it took a while to figure that out.
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess how long during your journey did it take to kind of figure that out?
I'm probably still figuring it out, right? Like, but I don't know. It was probably, I started figuring it out in Las Vegas. And then as I grew and moved positions, it became more and more clear. And I also think working for great leaders, you learn just as much when you work for poor leaders. And I've had both in my career. And so it's this idea of like, you fail just as way more than you succeed. Sometimes you learn what you don't want to do. And I've worked for the leaders before in my past life that are about them and not about the team. And seeing that, I went, I don't want to do that. That's not what I'm about. So I love talking. I love engaging with people, but it's not about me.
Now that's a quote. You learn as much from great leaders as you do from poor leaders. That's a quote for sure, 100%. That is amazing, and it's so true. And the moment you said that, I just a flow of like memories came back to me about a very poor leader that I had in my life, and I'm like, you know what? I actually did learn a lot. I may not have used what I learned in a leadership role, but I learned a lot about myself as a person, about who I do not want to be and how I don't want to talk to people, or the way I don't want to talk to people, and a lot about the ways I do want to talk to people, and just the way that everyone just needs to be respected in different ways. It's not all about yourself, and as a leader, of course, leaders have some of the most pressure on them throughout the entire company or any role and all throughout life. But you have to take that pressure with a grain of salt. Can you handle that pressure in the sense that can you now treat others with respect to get your goals done? Or are you going to crumble under the pressure and kind of just showcase your pressure? That's not the word I'm looking for, but project, that's it. Project your pressure on other people and make other people stress in their jobs where they're just doing their own thing. They're individual contributors who are doing great at their jobs. But if you as a leader are going to project onto them because you're getting stressed out, then maybe leadership is not the best for you, or maybe you need to figure out how to handle it a little bit better.
I also think like the whole Maya Angelou quote of like, people won't remember what you said or what you did, but they'll remember how they felt, how you made them feel. And I try and remember that all the time, is like, you want to be around people that feel like sunshine. You do. I want to be around people that feel like sunshine. Other people want to be around people that feel like sunshine. And those people get you to do your best work. And so if I can do that, if I can be that sunshine for someone that helps them do their best work and perform at their best, that's really my goal.
I believe the Gen Zs call that good vibes.
Good vibes. That's what my daughter wore in her shirt to school today. Good vibes.
Love that. I wonder where she got it from. Interesting. Okay, well, one of our last questions here. What are you most looking forward to in 2023 as a marketer?
I don't know, seeing if a robot takes over my job. I have no idea. To continue to build cool shit. Like my job is not hard. I sell tacos on the internet, like for Pete's sakes, like this is not rocket science. It is fun. I sell something everybody loves, right? There are signs all over my office that says like, I can't make everyone happy. I'm not a taco. So like, I might have the greatest job in the whole wide world. So for 2023, I want to keep doing that. I want to keep building and sharing the sunlight that is the tacos on the internet as much as possible.
I need to go to Amazon instantly and get one of those in shirt format. I want one of those shirts so bad. I can't make everyone happy. I'm not a taco. What a great saying. I love that so much. Let me check back on the audience questions here. Do we got anything in here? Nobody has any taco related questions. That's absolutely appalling to me.
Well, if they haven't been to Del Taco, they need to go. And we just launched Del Tortas, like sub type sandwiches, 7 inches, toasted. They're so good. So everyone needs to go get them.
So during college, this is going to sound really weird. Whenever I say preface with during college, when talking about Del Taco. So during college, I actually got the burgers at Del Taco. Do they still have burgers there?
They do, and they're so good. So when I first had the Double Del Burger, I was like, who orders this, right? Like I was totally skeptical, and I shouldn't even be saying that because I worked there, but I was totally skeptical. I took a bite. I was like, this is delicious. And now every time someone's like, what should I get? I was like, get the burger. And then people go, I thought you worked for tacos. I was like, I do, but like the burger's really good too. So it's shockingly delicious.
Yeah, it's amazing. Kevin agrees about the fries as well. Kevin says Del Taco has the best fries. So
they really do. We hear that a lot. People are like, these fries are amazing. And like they're crinkle cut fries too, which is, there's so much good food. So much good food.
There's so much love in the chat from Del Taco food right now.
They're like, why didn't you talk about that the whole time?
I was like, any questions? Absolutely not. But let me get some fries. That's so funny. Oh my God.
I want to know, are you still doing breakfast?
Yes. So breakfast tacos are like my jam, totally my jam. Right. So, yes, so good. And if you're a Delia Rewards member and you come and just get breakfast, you get free coffee. So I don't know why everyone wouldn't do that.
Agree. That's good.
Iced or hot coffee. Yeah, it's awesome.
Is that your idea, Erin?
Yeah, I cannot claim that idea. What I can do is tell you how I exploited the idea. But I know smarter people than I, right, make up those great ideas.
Okay. Wow. And any final words? This was such a favorite conversation today. How will you leave them with more? Anything?
Oh my God. That is like right at the edge of the cliff, right? No, I mean, I think be yourself, be authentic to who you are, and that makes people connect with you. Use empathy to lead, and just go out and do the best you possibly can. And when you go to bed at night, if you feel like, yep, I accomplished it, even if your accomplishment was connecting with your team, then you did a great job.
Oh, I will give you a little wrap up that I took away, which is, I love this famous line. So enough about me. What do you think about me? And how that is not the way to lead, according to Erin. And your better quote is from Maya Angelou, that people will remember how you made them feel versus what you say, or as Blake calls that, good vibes. So I think that all around, that was such a genuine, feel-good conversation, informative, inspiring. I really want to thank you, Erin from Del Taco and Blake from Gen Video. That was wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Yay. Well, I hope that you will help me welcome our next group of also fabulous speakers. Adam Hadi, I believe it is VP of Marketing at Current. And this conversation is being moderated by Shalana Clark, and she is head of marketing at Code 3. So this one's going to be really meaty as well. Hello, Adam. I see your fabulous face. Thank you for logging on. And one more camera to go on. There she is. Hello.
Hi.
Great. All right. You guys ready?
I have to say, I'm suddenly very hungry for tacos.
I know. I'm telling you that breakfast is my favorite, but I don't mind some French fries either. Okay. See if you can top that. Have a good conversation.
Thank you. I know, Adam, it sounds like we got some really big shoes to fill, but I'm pretty sure Current can do that with no problem, just based on all the great things I've heard about you guys.
Yeah, it's delicious.
For
You should
those who are
try a
watching,
burger.
yeah. For those who are watching and maybe unfamiliar with Current and what you guys do, can you tell us a little bit about what you do and what your role is?
Yeah, certainly. So we are a fintech based here in New York, providing banking to improve people's lives. That's top line. What that means is that we do mobile banking, so an app and a debit card that you can sign up for. It's free, and we don't do most of the things that traditional banks have done poorly, right? Lots of that around charging people fees, having less than ideal technology, less than ideal CS. We're humanizing all that and making it relevant to whole swaths of folks who've been overlooked otherwise.
Oh, so you're an industry disruptor, is what I get from it.
That will be accurate. And I'm Adam. I'm Adam Hattie. I'm VP of Marketing here. Current's been around for about 7 years. I've been here for about half of that.
Awesome. So let's just dive right in. It feels like every day there's a new app, a new device, or something new that marketers need to pay attention to. How have you been able to make sense of that fragmentation?
I'd say by paying a lot of attention to our audience. We do a lot of audience research, both of their behavior within our app and in our ecosystem and outside. I mean, fortunately for us, right, we are, people's bank account, right? Like you're swiping a debit card. We understand so much about people. We do what's called KYC, that's know your customer. So we actually we have verified ages, locations, etc. We see behavior, so we know that, and then we do tons of research, on actual audiences. So we understand for our target segments, what are they doing, where are they spending their time? Because ultimately, when it comes to marketing financial services, particularly banking, you really need to understand a customer holistically. And so we actually understand that stuff regardless of media habits. Like,
Sure.
you might not, today you might not be able to advertise on Netflix, but it still really matters to us that you consume Netflix.
Yeah.
Again, today, I think we're talking about maybe $60 CPMs coming up in like a quarter or something. I think I saw today. But
the CTV landscape is so varied that everybody wants the big CPMs, but they really have to have an audience to be able to prove their worth there. I think CTV can eventually. You don't think so?
Well, I'm just not quite sure that the audience that is like not quite willing to pay full price for Netflix is worth a $60 CPM when you can't do any type of sub-level targeting or measurement or even assurances that those impressions were delivered. But hey, okay, side topic,
well, that's accurate. That's accurate. You have a small group of companies, agencies, and technology.
Hey, those first ads, to be fair, will be like, whoa, ads on Netflix. that will reach those will have outsized impact.
Yeah,
people get used to that.
That's true. We'll see what we can do to make
new apps and new devices and things that we should be paying attention to. I guess it does kind of tie in.
It does. It does. If only we can make it a performance medium, we'd all be happy. So looking at what you guys are doing now, I do want to talk about the elephant in the room, because you all, I believe, are the most followed or most viewed financial services company on TikTok. Now, that's the elephant in the room. It's one of the fastest growing platforms. As the B2B services firm, how did you approach your presence there?
So TikTok is an interesting one. We, TikTok's been on our radar for a really long time. It's been on my radar for a really long time. I mean, there was a point in time when it was, I was using it when it was Musically, and it was me and a bunch of 13-year-old girls, and that was a little odd. But as a platform for young creators, it's always been relevant. And then you look over the last 2-3 years, and really on the back of what's interesting is it's on the back of a lot of paid marketing. It's obviously blown up and has tons of people's attention and tons of people's times. Now, as a ad platform, I've personally been impressed with how quickly they have developed. Right? It's you talk about sophistication there. While I was just talking about blanket CPMs with no target and no measurement. On one hand, here you have basically within the last 3 years, TikTok has built 80% of what maybe a Facebook or Google has built in 3 years. And that took maybe Snapchat 6 years to build. And so you're seeing kind of the compression of all that. So I've been pretty impressed with the speed in which they've been able to innovate there. But yeah, really it's about following the customer, because it doesn't really matter if people don't pay attention. But yeah, the TikTok has a lot of people's time and attention. And I think it's a really good platform for storytelling in ways that maybe other paid social doesn't really get to.
I think that's a good point, because as we move into more, should I say, shakier economic waters, being able to tell a good story is going to be key for a lot of brands, whether they're building up the brand or building up trust. Now, in finance, you guys obviously have an inflow and an outflow of a lot of sensitive information. How are you able to build or maintain trust with new customers and prospects alike in such a short amount of time?
Well, we aren't in a short amount of time. It takes time. It's like the shorthand. Again, we're talking about people's money. And people are really, really skeptical. They will not give you your money without having heard of you. That's just flat out. And so there has to be this period of hey, who are these people? What do they do? Why do they exist? Or why can I trust them with my money? What problem are they solving for me? That's gonna take time. Now you can use various shortcuts to get there, right? And there's lots of things that you can do that will make it worse. Again, trust is much easier to be lost than gained. One of the approaches that we've taken in terms of gaining that trust, actually related to a lot of the stuff I was just talking about on TikTok, is we work with a lot of creators, a lot of influencers, and through a lot of our sponsorship there, that's something that we've been able to do somewhat uniquely in the marketplace to gain people's trust a bit faster, right? And that's maybe the medium is new, right? If you talk about certainly TikTok, but even YouTube, Instagram, etc. But the idea of using celebrity endorsers to build trust in the brand is pretty ancient. And so that's one of the shortcuts we've taken.
So you bring up influencers, which are, I think, a good segue into what's on a lot of marketers' minds. When do influencers make sense? When are they maybe not a fit? What kinds of processes do you go through to vet your influencers and decide if they're a good match for the brand or not?
Yeah, well, I think as I speak to a lot of marketers, right? And I get a lot of people who will come to me and be like, hey, Adam, you're really good at this influencer thing. We want to do it. And it's like, I think, we're running that back. I mean, oftentimes, if we're being honest, it might just be like, some, maybe it's a CEO or some executive or a board member or whoever who's like, hey, this influencer thing works, do it. But like, I think winding it back, you really need to be like, hey, what problem are we trying to solve here? And then our influencer is the right thing to do it. And influencers, I think, are really great at telling a story. I think they're really great at building trust. They're really great at getting like nuance across. You might not need that depending on what category you're in. I mean, don't get me wrong, lots of companies need those things, right? But I come from a world where, earlier in my career, I did like a lot of gaming and mobile gaming, and if you're Candy Crush, you might not really need that, right? What is a creator giving you that a 3-second Facebook ad is not? Now, that's very different than if you compare that to a space where we're in, right, in financial services, and it certainly extends to lots of other brands. So I think the question that a marketer should probably be asking themselves is like, do we need those things to convert a customer? Does a customer need to trust us really? Do they need to understand our brand and our story? Is there a nuance that needs to be explained? And if all it is you're selling a pair of boots, the answer is probably no. And that's not. I'm not trying to simplify that, because that has its own levels of complications. But yeah, and then in terms of choosing creators we work with, it's just about being true to our brand and what we're trying to do. And it's interesting because so many of the creators that we work with, and it's somewhat of the of the brand promise of like the creator economy, is that you have people who were everyday people, a year ago, 3 years ago, 5 years ago, who went on, who very, quickly been able to be successful, basically, by pulling themselves up with their own bootstraps, right? This isn't a Hollywood executive anointing, you the next king or queen. This is, slightly more democratic. Right now, you make arguments about the platforms and algorithms and everything like that, but certainly compared to the old world, more democratic. And so those folks who, again, in many cases, have been everyday people experiencing everyday problems, who hustled, who tried to make it, who've now made it financially, are just incredible ambassadors to tell our story.
I agree with that. I think that even though it sounds like a bit of a cliche right now, content is still king. And regardless of what platform they're on, they're serving up content other people are interested in or can use. And so that's what allows them to build a presence and in the process help us build our brands.
Yeah, and that is happening faster and faster than I ever have.
That's true.
The time to, the time to success has shrunk, but also, the ability to sustain that success is a little bit more fickle, right? Like if you all of a sudden stop putting out content for a little bit, or start putting out mediocre content, in like even just a few years ago, you would still be able to sustain yourself based on previous successes. Now it's almost on a piece by piece basis. You put out a video, an individual thing that just falls flat, it's not going to get delivered to people, because where content delivery is so dependent on algorithmic delivery versus a subscription or a follow or whatever it may be.
I agree. And with content strategy being so tricky, and you're trying to really be efficient first and foremost, but also hit your message targets, hitting people with the right place at the right time and the right messaging. What has your approach or your team's approach been to creating content that covers the entire span of your customer's purchase journey?
Well, formal strategy. It's taking a lot of work, right? But it's
Yeah.
exactly that. And again, it goes into like the audience research, us understanding our target segments, understanding their state of mind, understanding how we can be addressing and them and be relevant to them throughout the stage. Because yes, what you tell somebody who has never heard of you is very different than what you tell somebody who is actively researching you. And deep in consideration is different than what you tell somebody who's already using, your product. Now, what's important is that all three of those things be in the same voice, and it sounds like it's coming from the same brand, right? Because otherwise, you're breaking the promise. If you're saying one thing, and then all of a sudden it's a different voice when you get in your what's this? This is not what I thought. I signed up for that thing. Who are you? It's really important to maintain that continuity.
I agree with that. It sounds like you guys have a very complex, multi-layered personalization strategy, which definitely works, or we've seen it work on our side as well.
Yeah, I wouldn't call it complex. I would just call it well-researched. It was hard to get there, but it's not really complex.
Okay, awesome. Do you find that drives you guys to do more experimentation in other areas of the business?
I'd say it's a lot of the same insights that drive our marketing. It's the same research that drives the product that we build. And so that's really important because it's aligned. And it allows us to speak to the same audience we're building for. And again, this is where you avoid things like broken promises, right? Because if your marketing team or your brand team or your creative team or whatever it might be is targeting one segment and saying one thing, and your company's building for another, again you'll inevitably it's like a fast path to not having product market fit.
I agree. I will say, I have to confess, Current seems like such a fun brand to be involved with, and it looks like a pretty fun brand to work for. What are some of the challenges you face internally getting buy-in for some of the things you guys carry out? Or do you find that most executives have that innovative spirit and, kind of go with the flow? How does that process work for you guys?
Yeah, well, look, we are young enough of a company. And our founder and CEO is still our founder and CEO, or I should say, it's still our CEO. Where this is like so much of a reflection of him and the executive team, right? Like this isn't, and so our brand, which and I use that in the broadest possible term, is just an authentic reality of who we are, and that makes a lot of things easy. Oftentimes, with again, when you talk about legacy brands or brands that have been acquired and all of a sudden it's like, well, what the thing originally stood for, like there's no real semblance of that once you actually dive in. That makes it really, really difficult. But in our case, it's everything is fairly authentic. I mean, we position ourselves as an innovative brand, and we have a culture of innovation here, right? And again, we're still at the stage as a company where it's most people understand most things, and that makes it pretty easy as well.
I think that's great. I love those brands who, first of all, are like Current, very, very authentic, but also have internally ingrained in their culture almost a startup mentality where everyone can do everything. Ideas can come from anywhere. They can be oddball ideas. We have a budget set aside for testing, because even if your testing budget is small, there's an opportunity to gain some share. So right now, one thing that seems to be on top of mind for every marketer is navigating uncertain economics. What are you prioritizing in the second half of this year? I realize we're in September, but what are you prioritizing for the remainder of this year and also for 2023?
I guess, it only reinforces the need for just a sharper view on the impact of everything you do in marketing. Right, there's like less room for error.
Yeah.
And you know, that's not like it's not really a bad thing inherently. And so I'd say we have a pretty high level of accountability here, and that's always been a part of our culture. And so in that way, I think maybe we're faring better than most, or at least some. And we also have a real business here,
Yeah.
you know, and real revenue and real unit economics and everything like that. So, yeah, I look and obviously, you know, I look at a lot of my peers and what's happened in the space, and I'm kind of grateful for being in the position we are. Yeah.
That's a great thing. I can tell your passion for what you do just shines through almost every moment. So I think that's a great thing. So we've been talking a lot of shop. Let's put that aside for just a second. And I have a couple of questions that I just like to hear what your thoughts are. We talked a little bit about current presence on TikTok in particular, but social media overall. Who is your favorite TikToker and why?
Oh man. My favorite TikToker. You know, this is a very controversial question. Because
I expected it to be.
I know these people personally. I'm gonna offend you know.
Well, you can say your favorite few TikTokers. That's fine. We're all friends here.
You know, just because we have a special relationship with him here at Current, I will go with Mr. Beast. He's not just a TikToker, he's more known for his stuff on YouTube. But you know, we have a long and, you know, storied relationship, and so I'll go with him. He's also the biggest YouTuber in the world, so that makes it a pretty easy answer.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that's the biggest one. So nobody can really argue with that until they get their followers up.
Yeah, you know, more people, you know, I guess by definition, more people agree with me than if I said anything else. But yeah, Jimmy's pretty great.
Very cool. Let me see. You've been so efficient at going through and answering a lot of my questions that, first of all, I really appreciate that. What do you see coming around the corner for not just Current, but your industry at large in the next 3 to 5 years? Like, what technological shifts are coming that could change the way you do business with your audience? Or what do you see as a big Web3 opportunity that maybe you guys are talking about internally?
It's interesting because you talk about so much, like the just macro wise in the marketing landscape, right? Like so much of people's attention over the last decade turned to their phones. So much of that in social media on their phones, and you know, kind of like the pendulum of marketing, you know, swung all the way towards like, hey, we have all this data, all this stuff we can measure, all the stuff that we know for sure. And it was and obviously in the last few years, not even just with Apple stuff, we've started to see the pendulum swing back again. And I don't think that's a bad thing, because I think the pendulum should probably be somewhere in the middle. And what I mean by that is, you know, probably like 3-4 years ago, particularly before iOS 15, I think a lot of assumptions marketers were making based on performance and tracking and attribution, because they had numbers and because, you know, they had these things, you just inherently start to believe them. And and kind of forget what they are. Like they are numbers and they do mean something, but what do they mean? They mean, in often cases like a last click attribution. What does that mean? And so by having a lot of that stripped away, I think it's forced a lot of marketers to rethink things and to have to make kind of like difficult conclusions and have to do like maybe some modeling that they're uncomfortable with. But all that I think is a better reflection of reality. And so I think that continues, at least for a bit. And then maybe we get, the pendulum swinging a little. We'll see. But I think overall, the state of tracking and attribution probably gets a little bit worse over the next couple of years. And then I think maybe starts to get a little bit better based on the potential value that can be created there. Because I think ultimately you can give marketers, advertisers the tools to measure the impact of their marketing without compromising people's privacy. Like, those tools, it's not like we have to invent something new. They exist today, but much more academically or in theory versus actually in practice in the market.
I would agree with that. It's never lost on me that every day there is a post somewhere on someone's feed that, oh, did you know that Instagram can see this? Did you know that Twitter knows this about you? And people get really riled up about it, not understanding that's always been the case. It's just that now they're hyper aware of it. So that's going to cause us to change some things. But I think marketers are nothing if not flexible. And so we'll continue to adapt to those situations as they present itself. So we're getting close to the end of our time. I think I have time for just one more question. And that is, are there any parting thoughts you would like to leave with the other marketers who are watching?
It kind of harkens to what I was saying earlier, but there's like really understanding your audience and being true to your own brand promise. Like those are kind of like, things that, so many different topics kind of ladder up to. When you aren't doing that, you're almost always setting up yourself up for disaster, right? If you don't understand your audience, you're not going to be able to reach them in the right places. You're not going to be able to understand what to tell them to get them to, move through the customer journey. And even if you get them into your product, they're not going to retain, they're not going to convert because, they were never the right fit to begin with. And, you won't really know unless you knew that you were bringing in that the start of that process was right. And then, the second part of that is being true to your brand, right? And making sure that, again, you could say anything in your advertising to get people to the next step, but if you aren't delivering on that in a way that's really just playing yourself.
And thanks to social media and technology available and an always on culture, you will know very quickly if you do break a promise to that audience or if you're not meeting their needs in some way. Well, I think those are all of the questions I had. Thank you so much, Adam.
Glad to be here.
Brilliant, fabulous, loved it. My two takeaways were follow Mr. B on TikTok. No, you said much more than that. And marketers are nothing if not flexible. And I had no idea that Instagram was following me. No, you guys were just terrific. Thank you so much, Elena Clark of Code 3 and Adam Hadi of Current. Sorry, I think I messed that up again. I apologize, but you were brilliant. And I love that conversation. And I really want to thank everybody. It was a terrific day all around. Big shout out to these speakers, all of our previous speakers, you, our audience, and I hope that you'll check out the Brand Innovators website to learn about our next event with many others to come. For Brand